Chapter 2012. It's Little Dragon Girl again? Let's get down to business. Zhang Tianyi's tone suddenly turned serious. I have a favor to ask of you. Favor of me? What is it? It's not a big deal. Just help me beat up the delivery disciple. Are you kidding? No, I'm not kidding. My grand disciple's cultivation method is called the Rui Sutra. It has a flaw, which is that it's extremely powerful. It's no problem for him to fight 10 people at the same level. Fighting 10 people is a flaw? Do you have any other flaws like that? Give me a dozen. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding either. Do you have some misunderstanding about the word flaw? The Rui Sutra's power is an advantage, but it's also a flaw. You have to be defeated at every level. The so-called Rui means that you have to be willing to do it. Why do I have to do this? You can do it too. The Rui Sutra trains the heart. My grand disciple knows that we're worlds apart, so even if I defeat him, he'll think it's natural, because I'm a senior and he's a junior. How can he train his heart when he's in such a state? Zhang Tianyi said. But you're different. He's so arrogant that he thinks he's invincible among his peers. If you defeat him now, his realm will advance by leaps and bounds. Why should I be the bad guy? Qin Zhao said. I won't do it anyway. If someone else could do it, I wouldn't be begging you. Among my grand disciples, none of them can defeat him. Even the few disciples who are qualified to inherit the position of celestial master can't do it. Even among the elders, there are very few who can match him. Now, unless we ask a few old guys to come out, almost no one can stop him. You made me an enemy out of nowhere? How could you come up with such an idea? I'm begging you. Right now, his state of mind is unstable, and he doesn't even know what kind of cultivation method he's practicing. He always thinks that his awesomeness is because of his 1-in-a-million talent. In fact, although his talent is not bad, it's far from 1 in a million. Even among his fellow disciples, there are many who are more outstanding than him. Why don't you just tell him that the reason why he's so awesome is because of his cultivation technique, not his talent? What he wants is to temper his state of mind, not to directly destroy him. If we tell him the truth, it will directly destroy his pride, and he will be completely crippled. Then are you sure that I won't destroy him if I make a move? No. It's not like he hasn't lost before. Although this Rui Sutra is awesome, it's far from being invincible. In the end, it still requires a sufficiently high cultivation base. How far do I need to go? I just have to defeat him, right? No, as long as you can't kill him, then beat him to death. Are you sure? As long as there aren't any sequelae, just hit them. That's what you said? If I break him, you can't blame me. I said it. Zhang Tianyi agreed straightforwardly. Are you sure that your disciple isn't the son of your enemy or something? You agree to this, right? Since you're begging me, I'll reluctantly agree. What's so hard about beating people up? Qin Zhao said casually. But are you sure your disciple won't really treat me as an enemy? I'll just explain it to him after he breaks through. Okay. Does he know that I'm the delivery person this time? No, I haven't told him yet. Call him to the suburbs. I'll give you a place. Tell him to go there so that it'll be easier for me to beat him up. Oh, what's his name again? Yifengniao. This name was definitely the male protagonist's special name. He was now following behind Zhang Tianyi's disciple. He had already followed him for half an hour. Even from a male's perspective, Yifengniao was so handsome that he had no friends. Of course, this also increased Qin Zhao's urge to beat him up. In fact, Yifengniao had also noticed that Qin Zhao had been following him. He could also feel Qin Zhao's murderous aura along the way. Yifengniao didn't know who Qin Zhao was. But someone who could release murderous aura toward him definitely wasn't an ordinary person. Yifengniao still pretended to be ignorant, and continued walking toward the place his grandmaster had given him. He guessed the identity of the person following him. At the same time, he was also on guard. At the same time, he secretly called Zhang Tianyi. Grandmaster, I think I'm being followed. What? You're being followed? Who's following you? Is it a spiritualist from North America? I'm not sure. He's very far from me. I can only guess that he's Asian. Then be careful. Also, don't lose the thing I told you to give me. That thing is very important. I heard that many people in the country want to snatch it. The people who are following you are probably from a cult in the country. Zhang Tianyi's acting was very good. He didn't reveal any flaws. Got it. Yi Fengmiao glanced at Chen Zhao, who was far behind him. To be honest, Chen Zhao's tracking skills were really bad. In the past, when Chen Zhao followed others, he mostly relied on the night or flew high in the sky. This way, even if others sensed his aura, they wouldn't be able to determine his location. But it was still daytime. Chen Zhao couldn't fly, so he could only follow on foot. It was reasonable for Yi Fengmiao to discover him. As he walked, Yi Fengmiao thought of a plan. He tried to shake off Chen Zhao, but he realized that although Chen Zhao wasn't very good at tracking, he was very fast. However, his speed was quite fast. He tried to shake him off several times, but to no avail. It seemed that he could only fight. Yi Fengmiao had an idea. Holding a yellow talisman between his fingers, he chanted, "The wind hides the white clothes. The yellow water hides the red dust. The cloak concealment spell." At some point, Yi Fengmiao disappeared before Chen Zhao's eyes. Chen Zhao was surprised. How did the kid disappear? Chinese spells were indeed troublesome. His shadow eye couldn't find the kid's sight. Chen Zhao didn't know that the cloak concealment spell could erase all traces in a short time. It was as if the caster had disappeared from the world. No spell could find him. Even Zhang Tianyi couldn't find any traces of Yi Fengmiao, let alone Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao had already arrived at the place where Yi Fengmiao had disappeared. He looked left and right but didn't see Yi Fengmiao. Chapter 2013. No way, he ran away just like that. If he really ran away, he'd lose all his face. At that time, Zhang Tianyi, that old guy, would definitely mock and ridicule him. Chen Zhao had already opened his small world completely. The small world enveloped everything within a radius of 1,000 meters. But he still couldn't find any trace of Yi Fengmiao. Chen Zhao knew that he was nearby. But he just couldn't find him. Just when Chen Zhao thought that Yi Fengmiao had escaped, suddenly, an aura descended from the sky without any warning. Chen Zhao raised his head and saw many burning yellow talismans flying in the sky. Immediately, Chen Zhao felt his head sink, as if something heavy had landed on it. Chen Zhao staggered 2 steps and a burning yellow talisman floated before him. Chen Zhao was stunned. He stared at the yellow talisman before him in shock. The yellow talisman suddenly turned into a yellow turban warrior. Left hook, right hook, uppercut, warrior cleaves the mountain. Chen Zhao didn't know which way was north after this combination of punches. The yellow turban warrior didn't exist for long, only a few dozen seconds. But as soon as it disappeared, Chen Zhao heard Yi Fengmiao's voice. 9 dragons clasp. 9 yellow talismans landed before Chen Zhao. Then they turned into 9 dragon-shaped cyclones. One of the cyclones wrapped around Chen Zhao's neck and turned into a metal clasp. Chen Zhao reached out to break the metal buckle on his neck, but the other 2 dragon-shaped cyclones immediately wrapped around his arms and also turned into metal buckles. Chen Zhao felt the clasp on his neck tighten. The clasps on his arms were also pulling his arms to the sides. They were quite strong, but it wasn't very effective against Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao didn't use his full strength, afraid that he'd scare Yi Fengmiao away. Just then, Yi Fengmiao seemed to think that the situation was set. He revealed himself before Chen Zhao. "Sir, who are you? Which sect are you from?" Yi Fengmiao looked at Chen Zhao proudly. "Hand over what your Grand Master told you to bring and I'll spare your life." Chen Zhao was going to play the bad guy today, so he obviously had to act like one. "You're already in my hands. How can you let me live?" Yi Fengmiao sneered at Chen Zhao, his eyes filled with disdain. Chen Zhao looked at Yi Fengmiao. To be honest, Yi Fengmiao wasn't led astray. His values were still rather upright. At least, when Yi Fengmiao had the upper hand, he didn't go all out. He also had a sense of propriety when he made his move. It was just that since young, he had always been the center of attention, so it was inevitable for him to be a little self-righteous and condescending. Qin Zhao really didn't want to be the bad guy. No matter how you looked at it, Yifeng Miao had the fate of a main character. However, since he had promised old man Zhang Tianyi, he had to at least put in some effort. "Do you think you can catch me?" Qin Zhao shook his arms with all his might. The metal buckles on his arms broke instantly. Yifeng Miao's pupils constricted as he retreated, casting his spells at the same time. "Mao Tai is the prison, the ecliptic subdues the demon." Yifeng Miao's talent was undeniable. He was currently using an ecliptic path spell. Although the ecliptic Tao was born from Taoism, it did not belong to Taoism. It was a school of its own. The path of the ecliptic was good at divining the stars and fortune, and was also good at subduing demons. The people of Huaxia often talked about the auspicious day of the zodiac, and the zodiac referred to this ecliptic magic technique. However, the current ecliptic lineage was already lacking in disciples. Yifeng Miao had once obtained an ecliptic path treasure when he was young. He also obtained an ancient book, which allowed him to learn ecliptic path magic. Furthermore, the inheritance of the ecliptic Tao emphasized on talent the most. If one didn't have enough talent, they wouldn't be able to learn it even if the secret manual was placed in front of them. As Yifeng Miao unleashed her spell, it formed a square cage around Qin Zhao. Seeing that Qin Zhao was trapped, Yifeng Miao heaved a long sigh of relief. He had never seen anyone who could shatter the 9-dragon buckle with just a vibration. If he hadn't reacted in time, he might have really died in the hands of this guy. Just what sect did this guy belong to? He actually had such an unfathomable cultivation. Looking at his age, he seemed to be only 1 or 2 years older than him. If they were to confront each other head-on, he would probably suffer a crushing defeat. Qin Zhao reached out and grabbed the bars of the cage. The bars weren't made of metal, wood, or stone. It wasn't a normal cage. It was formed with the power of Mao Tai. It was invulnerable to weapons and water and fire. "You're a prisoner now. Do you want to tell me who you are?" Qin Zhao twisted his neck and looked at Yifeng Miao. There was also a ninja suit hidden in his spatial ring. The original plan was to pretend to be a Japanese ninja and attack him. That way, he wouldn't have to show his face in public. In the future, if Yifeng Miao wanted to take revenge, he could go to Japan to find him. However, he didn't even have time to change before they started fighting. Qin Zhao crossed his arms. "I want to know how long you can maintain this spell." Light flashed across Yifeng Miao's eyes. 3/4 of an hour. "But in these 3/4 of an hour, I can attack you, but you can't do anything. Do you think you can withstand my attacks for 3/4 of an hour?" Qin Zhao rubbed his chin and thought. "How long is 3 minutes? Oh, right, it's half an hour, right?" Yifeng Miao snorted, thinking that Qin Zhao was teasing him. "Looks like you won't know fear if I don't teach you a lesson." Just then, Yifeng Miao's phone rang. Yifeng Miao glanced at it. It was Zhang Tianyi. "Xiao Yezi, are you okay?" "I'm great. Grandmaster, I've already caught that person. I'm asking about his background." You caught him?" "Yes, I used ecliptic demon suppression to trap him in the cage. Come, let's video call. Maybe I know him." Zhang Tianyi knew that Qin Zhao was definitely going easy on him. However, it would definitely be interesting to see Qin Zhao being trapped by his grand disciple's spell. He had to take a screenshot and save it to humiliate Qin Zhao in the future. But Qin Zhao also heard the conversation between Yifeng Miao and Zhang Tianyi. How could he give Zhang Tianyi such a chance? Boom! The ground shook. Yifeng Miao almost lost his footing. He saw that Qin Zhao was punching the cage. Qin Zhao's first punch didn't have any effect. But what was with that earth-shaking tremor? Yifeng Miao stared at Qin Zhao in shock. Qin Zhao estimated. "Looks like it's tougher than I thought. If Zhang Tianyi used this move, I'd probably have to use all my strength to break free. Luckily, Yifeng Miao isn't that old man." Qin Zhao punched the cage again. This time, he was 10 times stronger than before. Boom! The cage collapsed instantly. Before Yifeng Miao could react, Qin Zhao had already grabbed his neck. Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2014. Yifeng Miao was completely frightened. Ecliptic demon suppression had been broken. It wasn't like ecliptic demon suppression hadn't been broken before. But in the past, it had always been broken by the opponent's techniques. He had never known that the ecliptic demon suppression art could be destroyed through brute force. Today, he had truly broadened his horizons. Yifeng Miao was extremely fast. Seeing Qin Zhao grab him, he immediately cast Heavenly King's possession on himself. When did Yifeng Miao become so strong? He felt like he could tear everything apart. But he'd overestimated himself. When he tried to pry open Qin Zhao's palm, he realized that his strength was useless. Even with Heavenly King's possession, he couldn't move Qin Zhao at all. I said, hand over what that old turtle gave you and I'll spare your life. Qin Zhao purposely said this for Zhang Tianyi to hear. Yifeng Miao hadn't hung up yet. Zhang Tianyi was still on the phone. Qin Zhao snatched Yifeng Miao's phone and opened the video call. Old turtle, do you want to see how I kill your disciple? Yifeng Miao felt like he was about to suffocate. Qin Zhao's power was too great. Waves of pain came from his neck. He'd never seen someone who dared to provoke his grandmaster like this. This was not a provocation behind his back. It was right in front of Zhang Tianyi. This guy's guts were boundless. He also dared to provoke Zhang Tianyi like this. Then he definitely dared to kill him. This made Yifeng Miao's limbs turn cold. In the past, no matter what kind of enemy he'd faced, Zhang Tianyi would always stand out to protect him. But this time, Zhang Tianyi was thousands of miles away. Zhang Tianyi couldn't do anything. Yifeng Miao's mind suddenly cleared up. He had to save himself now. His grandmaster couldn't save him anymore. If he couldn't save himself, then he would be dead. Thoughts spun in Yifeng Miao's mind. Possibilities popped up in his mind one after another. But he eliminated them one by one. Finally, he thought of an idea. Sky Demon Disintegration Technique! Yifeng Miao roared. Immediately after, Yifeng Miao's aura surged. Just then, Qin Zhao felt a boundless pressure coming toward him. In that instant, Qin Zhao was furious. What a terrifying power! But the next moment, Qin Zhao woke up. What the hell? This wasn't a power strong enough to scare Qin Zhao. It was basically a type of spiritual magic. And this was not some sky demon disintegration technique. Yifeng Miao shouted like that to scare Qin Zhao. The great demonic disintegration technique was a desperate technique. Exchanging life force for power, the effect could range from several times to dozens of times. However, even if Yifeng Miao's power had increased by dozens of times, he wouldn't be scared by Qin Zhao. In reality, what Yifeng Miao had just used was the Shining Dragon technique of the Ecliptic Tao. The name of the Candle Dragon skill sounded very powerful. In fact, the Candle Dragon skill had no offensive effect at all. The Candle Dragon skill was to give the enemy a deceptive illusion. To put it bluntly, it was mental magic. It made one think that they were facing an illumination dragon and not a human. And Yifeng Miao's strategy worked. He really scared Qin Zhao. However, this effect was too short-lived. Qin Zhao woke up almost instantly. Yifeng Miao was surprised to see Qin Zhao wake up so quickly. The last person to wake up in such a short time was Zhang Tianyi. But this man couldn't be compared to his grandmaster. Qin Zhao's expression darkened. Because he really felt that it was quite embarrassing. He'd been tricked by an empty fort. I'm going to kill you! Qin Zhao gritted his teeth and stared at Yifeng Miao. Yifeng Miao didn't speak. After breaking free, he immediately cast a spell to escape. Earth escape! Yifeng Miao's figure disappeared from the ground. Qin Zhao's eyes glowed. He could feel Yifeng Miao's aura moving rapidly underground. Qin Zhao punched the ground with all his might. Rumble! With a loud sound, the ground within 100 meters collapsed and cracked. Yifeng Miao had thought that he'd escaped. But he soon realized that he was in trouble. The ground had been shattered by Qin Zhao. There were cracks everywhere, making it impossible for him to continue using Earth Escape. Yifeng Miao could only burrow out of the ground. He held a yellow talisman in his hand and scribbled in the air. The yellow talisman started burning. Spirit of the heavens, spirit of the earth, O Lord Taishang, show yourself. Lend me your body and aid me in my cultivation. Destroy my traitor and spread my virtue. Yifeng Miao could only force himself to fight Qin Zhao. Zhang Tianyi was watching the battle between Qin Zhao and Yifeng Miao. Qin Zhao wanted Zhang Tianyi to see how he was bullying his disciple. Seeing Yifeng Miao use treasure-seeking 3 pure ones, Zhang Tianyi couldn't help but slap his forehead. Treasure-seeking 3 pure ones was a superior grade spell. In Taoism, the 3 pure ones refer to the 3 supreme gods. In the eyes of cultivators, the 3 pure ones referred to 3 types of qi. In ancient times, it was written as qi. The 3 qi were Taiqing, Yuqing, and Shangqing. It was referring to the innate qi, chaotic qi, and nature qi. As for the many Taoist spells, they seemed to be related to the gods, but in fact, they borrowed the power of nature. For example, Yifeng Miao's treasure-seeking 3 pure ones. Basically, it was using connate qi from Taiqing. Humans had connate qi, so did the world. If it had been an ordinary opponent, this spell would have been just right. But now, his opponent was Qin Zhao. This was not an enemy that a normal spell like treasure-seeking 3 pure ones could turn around. In Zhang Tianyi's opinion, Yifeng Miao needed a more radical spell. He might not be able to defeat Qin Zhao, but he had a higher chance of protecting himself. Yifeng Miao borrowed the connate qi from Taiqing and spat it at Qin Zhao. True Samadhi Fire! Qin Zhao was really shocked when he heard the name True Samadhi Fire. He didn't dare to take Yifeng Miao's fire head-on. However, Qin Zhao had an absolute advantage in speed. He circled to Yifeng Miao's back in the blink of an eye and kicked his butt. Piss off! Yifeng Miao fell to the ground in a sorry state. The kick was neither light nor heavy, but he couldn't even straighten his back. You bastard! Yifeng Miao cursed. I'm a bastard? You've never seen me more of a bastard. With a flash, Qin Zhao appeared before Yifeng Miao again and gave him a big slap. Yifeng Miao covered his face and took 2 steps back. Hand it over, or I'll let you die in a foreign land. Chapter 2015. Qin Zhao suddenly felt that dying in a foreign land wasn't cruel enough. Do you know what American prisons are like? Qin Zhao didn't even need to say anything. Yifeng Miao had already started imagining things. Yifeng Miao's treasure-seeking 3 was very ineffective. It was just as Zhang Tianyi had predicted. The treasure-seeking 3 pure ones were not suitable to deal with an enemy like Qin Zhao. Seeking treasures from the 3 pure ones was to borrow Xiantian qi, chaotic qi, and nature qi. And the biggest use of borrowing these 3 was to make his own spells sharper and release some spells that he couldn't release in the past. However, Qin Zhao didn't want to compete with Yifeng Miao in spells. If it was just spells, Yifeng Miao was much better than Qin Zhao. But they weren't competing in spells now. They were competing in combat power. Qin Zhao's combat power was much better than Yifeng Miao's. Yifeng Miao couldn't even hit Qin Zhao. No, more accurately, Yifeng Miao couldn't even release a complete spell. Qin Zhao didn't give him any time or chance. It was like a fighter and a gunman. The gunman had to take out his gun first, and then load it. But the fighter wouldn't give him the chance. Of course, Qin Zhao didn't plan on killing him. So he knew when to stop. This was on the premise that Yifeng Miao wouldn't die. Other than that, there were no other restrictions. Yifeng Miao was also stubborn. He'd been beaten into a pig's head by Qin Zhao. But he still wouldn't take it out, and wouldn't lower his head to Qin Zhao. It looked like he was already half dead. Qin Zhao didn't stop. He continued beating Yifeng Miao. Just then, Zhang Tianyi yelled in the video. Enough, stop. Yi, give him the thing. Grandmaster. I can't, the thing is important, but not as important as you, Zhang Tianyi said seriously. Qin Zhao pouted. This old guy was using his favor to improve his relationship with his disciple. What a jerk. He was the one who told Qin Zhao to beat up his disciple. Yet he still pretended to care about his junior. What a detestable face. Seeing Zhang Tiany's pitiful expression, Qin Zhao really wanted to beat him up. Yifeng Miao still didn't want to admit defeat. It wasn't about the thing anymore. His stubbornness and his pride did not allow him to admit defeat. Yifeng Miao felt a lump in his chest. Yifeng Miao's breathing quickened. The aura on his body also became stronger and stronger. Zhang Tianyi raised his eyebrows. Breakthrough? He broke through just like that. Zhang Tianyi really didn't expect this. He had originally thought that after this setback, Yifeng Miao would need to return to the mountain to settle down before he could make a breakthrough. He didn't expect Yifeng Miao to break through so quickly. Yifeng Miao also felt that he was different. His magic power was increasing at an alarming rate. I won't admit defeat! I will never admit defeat! Yifeng Miao suddenly roared hysterically. His eyes were bloodshot, and the aura on his body was multiplying. I did not lose! Yifeng Miao wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and took out a yellow talisman. Again? It's almost time for my meal. I don't have time to waste with you. Can't you just hand it over? Chen Zhao was getting impatient. Chen Zhao charged forward, grabbed Yifeng Miao's wrist, and lifted her up. One of Yifeng Miao's hands was in the air, but he was unprecedentedly confident. His other hand didn't stop casting spells. He even let Chen Zhao grab his arm on purpose. His left hand was already waiting for Chen Zhao with a huge gift. The sky seemed to darken especially early today. The sun hadn't completely set just now. But now, the sky suddenly darkened. Ecliptic Miezong. Yifeng Miao's palm suddenly slapped Chen Zhao's face. A giant covered in talismans appeared behind Yifeng Miao. The giant was called Miezong, a god in the ecliptic system. From Earth, the trajectory of the sun in the sky, the path that the sun took was called the ecliptic. After the sun set, Miezong would drag it to the end of the sea. One day, when the sun no longer rose, it would be the day Miezong completely destroyed the sun. Thus, the giant Miezong was also a symbol of destruction. Miezong's palm slapped toward Chen Zhao. The moment Chen Zhao was hit, a huge impact occurred. Miezong's attacks were also filled with destructive power. Every time he attacked, there would be a violent explosion. Yifeng Miao didn't think that Chen Zhao could beat him now. He had successfully summoned the giant Zhongmie. This spell was the most powerful spell in the ecliptic path. In fact, Yifeng Miao believed that there was no spell more powerful than the ecliptic annihilation spell. Chen Zhao was thrown into the air by the attack. Boom boom boom, giant Zhongmie attacked Chen Zhao 3 more times in the air. Chen Zhao fell to the ground. Yifeng Miao was delighted to see Chen Zhao in such a sorry state. Because now, the situation had been completely reversed. Right now, he was the one in charge of life and death. Chen Zhao stood up slowly. Yifeng Miao was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he looked down at Chen Zhao. Is there anything else you want to say now? Chen Zhao tore off his tattered jacket. I'm sick of it. This game isn't fun. Chen Zhao looked at the phone he'd snatched from Yifeng Miao and crushed it. Zhang Tianyi, who was on Mount Longhu, felt his heart skip a beat. He cursed inwardly. Don't go overboard. Zhang Tianyi quickly called Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao glanced at his phone and turned it off. Let's talk one last time. Give me the item and I'll leave. Beat me first, Yifeng Miao said proudly. To him, Chen Zhao was already at the end of his rope. He had no other choice. Just like in the past, his opponents would fall before him one by one. Chen Zhao took a deep breath and looked at Yifeng Miao and the giant behind him. Do you really think you can beat me with this? The truth is obvious. I've won. Yifeng Miao looked at Chen Zhao proudly. Fine, if you think so, let's begin. Chen Zhao shrugged. Mie, kill him. Yifeng Miao didn't plan to show mercy this time. He felt that Chen Zhao wanted to kill him, so it was reasonable for him to kill Chen Zhao. But Chen Zhao had disappeared. Did he run? Yifeng Miao was surprised. Qin Zhao had run too fast. This disappointed him. He wanted to see how strong Miao was. He didn't think that the arrogant Qin Zhao would be so cowardly. But Yifeng Miao didn't see how Qin Zhao had escaped. However, giant Mia Zhang kept looking up at the sky. Chapter 2016. What was he looking at? Giant Zhang Mia shouldn't be conscious. Yifeng Miao was confused. He also looked up at the sky. Most of Yifeng Miao's spells were of the ecliptic branch. But that didn't mean he believed in the ecliptic. He knew very well that Giant Zhang Mia wasn't a real god. He wasn't an ancient god that had existed in history. He had never truly existed. But that didn't stop him from being powerful. Yifeng Miao suddenly saw something in the night sky. It seemed to be a star, or a shooting star. It was dragging a flaming tail. That thing seemed to be falling toward him. Yifeng Miao tilted his head and watched for a minute. Gradually, he felt that something was wrong. That thing really seemed to be falling toward him. Yifeng Miao didn't have time to prepare. The falling speed of that thing was simply too fast. When that thing came close, Yifeng Miao finally saw what it was. It was Qin Zhao. Yifeng Miao was completely confused. How did Qin Zhao fall from such a high place? How did he appear so high in the sky in the blink of an eye? Boom! Falling from the sky, Qin Zhao smashed into Giant Zhang Mia. There was a loud bang, accompanied by a destructive shockwave. Yifeng Miao was sent flying. Giant Zhang Mia took the direct hit from the shooting star. His body pierced hundreds of meters through the forest, and then lay on the ground, dead. There was a hole in his chest. His body was gradually dissipating, returning to the world. Yifeng Miao's head was bleeding. He stood up with difficulty. He looked very wretched. His arms, body, and face were covered in dirt and blood. Qin Zhao looked at the forest that Giant Zhang Mia had swept through. There was a shocking burn mark on the ground. Qin Zhao stood where Giant Zhang Mia had disappeared and looked at Yifeng Miao, who was staggering over. Have you heard of a palm technique that falls from the sky? Madman. He was a madman. This was like a person jumping down from the 30th floor in order to kill his enemy, wanting to smash his enemy to death. But Qin Zhao had succeeded, and he was completely unharmed. Yifeng Miao didn't know what to say. Yifeng Miao calculated how much power he had left. Could he summon the giant destroyer again? Do you think I'll let you summon that ugly thing again? Qin Zhao grinned. Yifeng Miao took a deep breath, his eyes still filled with stubbornness. If you dare to resist again, trust me, I will definitely crush your balls. The stubborn Yifeng Miao finally gave in. Any man would have given in to such a threat. Yifeng Miao took out a box. However, he hesitated whether he should throw it to Qin Zhao. After all, if Qin Zhao went back on his word after getting the item, there was nothing he could do. Yifeng Miao looked at Qin Zhao with sparkling eyes. Don't worry. I'll definitely keep my promise. Qin Zhao smiled sincerely. Yifeng Miao took a deep breath and finally threw the box to Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao opened the box. It was indeed an elemental fruit. I've given you the item. Can I go now? No. Qin Zhao suddenly smiled evilly. You want to break your promise? No, I'm not breaking my promise. Qin Zhao waved his finger. My previous condition was that you take this out and I won't make things difficult for you, but it's different now. I only promise that I won't crush your balls. You show. When Qin Zhao walked out of the forest, he finally exhaled in relief. Old Zhang, it's done. I've already taught your grand disciple a good lesson. Qin Zhao, you show. Zhang Tianyi cursed. If anything happens to my grand disciple, I won't let you off. I'm asking about your ancestor. Why are you cursing me? You told me to do this. Do you believe that I won't go back and kill your grand disciple? Don't be like this. I'm old. I can't control my emotions. Fuck, seeing your face, I really should kill your grand disciple. How is he now? I ripped off all his hair, broke his hands, crushed his shoulder blades, broke 3 of his ribs, and crushed his left knee plate. You're too cruel. What's a small injury to you? Don't tell me you can't heal him. Zhang Tianyi somewhat regretted asking Chen Zhao for help. Chen Zhao really did as he asked. As long as he couldn't die, he would beat him to death. I can understand you hurting him, but why did you rip off all his hair? Do you know that women aren't the only ones who are jealous? Men have it too, Chen Zhao said honestly. Yes, Chen Zhao was jealous of his handsomeness. Such a handsome man should be punished by justice. I agree. Zhang Tianyi suddenly changed his stance. You're even jealous of your grand disciple? Any man who's more handsome than me is my enemy. I don't care if he's my grand disciple or not. You're so bad, old man. You might not believe it, but he's still a virgin. How is that possible? With his looks, even I'd believe it if you said that his pursuers are stronger, unless he's impotent. But when I fought him just now, I felt that he was full of energy. It doesn't look like he's impotent. Plus, his actions are normal. He doesn't look gay. When he entered the sect, I told him that he can't get close to women before mastering his martial art. Otherwise, he'll die suddenly. Really? Of course not. I've never heard of any martial art that requires virgins to practice. Don't they say that you have to maintain your virginity? That's in wuxia novels. You actually believe that? I suddenly feel so happy, Chen Zhao said, taking pleasure in Zhang Tianyi's misfortune. You haven't seen this brat. The female outer sect disciples of Mount Longhu are throwing flirtatious glances at him all day long, but he's been suppressing it all day long. At night, he's secretly having sex. He thinks no one knows, haha, fuck, you're too dirty. You're the king of filth. Peeking at your grand disciple's shooting. If this guy knows what you've done, he'll definitely be corrupted. Chen Zhao was completely impressed by the old man's bad taste. It's because he's so handsome. Tell me the truth. Did you really ask me to beat him up to train his mind? Or are you just jealous of his handsomeness? Don't doubt my professionalism. I'm a professional as a grandmaster. Zhang. Chen Zhao suddenly changed his tone. What? I recorded everything you said just now. Chapter 2017. When Chen Zhao left the mountain, he saw the figure of a giant dragon. The aura was familiar. It seemed to be Xiaolongnu. Oh, her real name was Akra Bu-Man. However, Chen Zhao really couldn't remember her real name. It was easier to remember Xiaolongnu. Xiaolongnu didn't notice Chen Zhao's gaze. She flew through the sky in her original form. Then, he called Zhang Tianyi. Old Zhang, did you call Xiaolongnu? I told her to collect Yifeng Miao's corpse. Zhang Tianyi's vicious mouth was always harsh. Speaking of which, if there are giant dragons in the west, are there dragons in the east? Chen Zhao was curious. Yes and no. You're playing with the stream of consciousness again? Just tell me directly. Yes or no? Just as you think, there are no dragons like the giant dragon clan. I really don't like talking to you. If you don't like talking to me, then why are you calling me? If I don't call you, then I'll call your disciple. Fine, fine. How can you be like this? How can you bully a junior? What right do you have to criticize me? Who gave you the confidence? Do you want me to tell you or not? Fine, tell me. The dragons in China are divine beasts. They're formed from the qi in the rivers and the essence of the world. Then those flood dragons, scaled dragons, and carps jumping over the dragon gate aren't real dragons? Flood dragons can really turn into dragons, but they have to become the river god of a river first. For example, the flood dragon you killed last time. After becoming a river god, it kept merging with the water qi and shed its acquired body, finally turning into a divine dragon. As for other scaled dragons, there really aren't any. The possibility of carps jumping over the dragon gate is even smaller. How can they turn into dragons after jumping? They don't even taste good. What if the carp becomes a spirit and becomes a river god? How can there be so many ifs? There will always be a few mutants in this world, and there will always be exceptions. However, exceptions are exceptions. If one group succeeds, it doesn't mean that the entire group will definitely succeed. For example, you are so awesome right now, but you said that all humans are like you. Is that possible? Zhang Tianyi said disapprovingly. There are also familiar mythological beasts such as Phoenix and Kylin. They are all born from the essence of heaven and earth. For example, Phoenix is born from the light of the sun shining on the earth, so Phoenix is also called the royal bird. Kylin is born from the essence of the mountain spirit, so Kylin is the king of all beasts. So you're saying that the legends about those mythological beasts are basically fake? Most of them are fake. Of course, some myths were modified to be more in line with the understanding and knowledge of mortals. After hundreds or thousands of years of evolution, they finally became the myths that we know now. Then what about those ancient beasts in the legends? For example, the dragon giving birth to 9 sons is also fake? So these mythological beasts can't be killed, right? They're not completely unkillable. Wait. Shen Zhao, don't be rash. Mythological beasts may not be the strongest, but they represent the supreme will. When you see them, you should kowtow to them first. Don't always think about fighting and killing. Have you ever kowtowed to a mythological beast? Yes. When I was at the peak of my luck, I saw the master of the Great Swamp, the mythological beast Bai Zhe. Zhang Tianyi was not embarrassed at all when talking about his shameless past. He even sounded proud of himself. Did you get anything in return? Of course, but the condition is that you have to make him feel good. Things are different now. Back then I could flatter him all sorts of things. Now that I'm arrogant, I can't lower myself. You can't, but I can. Introduce that mythological beast Bai Zhe to me. What's the point of introducing you? I can't even find him. Didn't you say that he's the master of the Great Swamp? Go to the Great Swamp and find him. The Great Swamp is a legendary place. Do you think it's your backyard? People without great luck won't be able to find it. By the way, what happens if I kill a mythological beast? That's a great cause and effect. For example, the divine beast Bai Zhe. He's formed from the wind and clouds, and he also symbolizes auspiciousness and longevity. At the same time, he also has the ability to bless his descendants. But if you kill him, you'll end your line of descendants. This isn't a curse, but it's cause and effect. Chen Zhao shivered. Does the benefit you get have something to do with what he symbolizes? I've been blessed with the health and safety of my descendants, Zhang Tianyi said seriously. Huh! Chen Zhao was intrigued. This was good stuff. Then what do dragons, phoenixes, and qilins symbolize? I don't know, but they have an auspicious side and a dark side. So, don't kill a mythological beast presumptuously. What you gain might not be as good as what you lose. Will the Western dragons be fine? I've killed quite a few dragons. It's fine. As long as you think you can even wipe them out. You old thing, stop egging me on. Chen Zhao cursed. But the next moment, he changed his tone. Is it possible to create mythological beasts artificially? It's possible when you reach a certain level, but it'll be meaningless by then, Zhang Tianyi said. For example, you're so rich now. If you think about asking for this and that, you've already surpassed the level of what you used to dream about. I feel like I'm pretty awesome now. Can I do it now? No, I'm still far from it. Then forget it. Qin Zhao wasn't too surprised by Zhang Tianyi's answer. When he got home, he already missed dinner. Of course, he still kept his portion. After dinner, Chen Zhao called Princess over. Princess, look at this. Princess's IQ was about the same as a 10-year-old. But with her knowledge, she was still confused about elemental fruits. Princess reached out with her paw to take the fruit. To it, since Qin Zhao had placed the elemental fruit in front of it, it must be for it to eat. Qin Zhao didn't stop her. He watched as Princess stuffed the fruit into her mouth. The fruit was the size of a fist, but before Princess, who was the size of a small truck, it was nothing. Princess, do you feel anything? Princess sat on the ground and rubbed her stomach. Then she looked at Qin Zhao in confusion. Had she not digested it yet? Qin Zhao was confused. Princess didn't change at all. Chen Zhao waited for a while and asked, "Still nothing?" Chapter 2018. Was it fake? Or did something happen, but Princess didn't feel it? Qin Zhao started to think about it again. But on second thought, when Princess obtained the power to tear the earth, she knew how to use it directly. It was like instinct. If there was some change this time, she should notice and understand it directly. Whatever, if there was no change, then there was no change. Qin Zhao was still a little disappointed. Of course, he wasn't disappointed in Princess. "Fei Lai, I'm going to cultivate. I'll be back later," Qin Zhao said to Fei Lai, who was playing with the children in the living room. "Don't shoot down the government plane again." Last time, Qin Zhao had shot down an Air Force plane. It was reported on the news the next day, but the military explained that there was a mistake during training, which caused the plane to crash. Qin Zhao and Fei Lai had been watching the news and happened to see the news. Chen Zhao had said casually, "Isn't that the plane I shot down last night?" Then Fei Lai knew what Qin Zhao had done. "Qin, if you really want to shoot it down, bring the wreckage back. Then fix the shell and put it in the yard for the children to play with." Qin Zhao patted Princess' head beside him. He appeared half a meter away instantly. But at that moment, Princess actually appeared beside him. Qin Zhao was stunned. The moment Princess appeared, her huge body fell down. The Princess was waving her limbs and howling non-stop. Qin Zhao hurriedly pulled her back. "Princess, why are you here?" Qin Zhao put Princess back on the ground. He looked at Princess in confusion. With his speed, even if Princess could really fly, she couldn't catch up to him, right? Unless... Qin Zhao looked at the Princess again. Unless she could teleport. Qin Zhao took out a ball and tossed it in his hand. "Princess, catch!" With that, he tossed the ball over the cliff. Princess wasn't a dog, but her personality was similar to one. She also liked to play with her family. The Princess moved again and instantly disappeared from where she was standing. The next moment, she appeared in the air, opening her mouth to catch the ball. However, it had miscalculated, and the ball still flew out of its bite range. Roar! Princess fell from the sky, roaring. Chen Zhao caught Princess again. Although teleportation had brought miraculous things to the Princess, it had also put her in danger. It still couldn't control this ability well. Once it teleported into the air and didn't use it continuously, it would directly fall from the sky and bring about great damage. "Princess, can you jump continuously?" Princess tilted her head and looked at Qin Zhao, as if he found it hard to understand. Qin Zhao scratched his head. How should he explain this? Qin Zhao thought for a moment. His body flashed, and he appeared dozens of meters away as fast as he could. "Come, Princess!" Princess also flashed and appeared beside Qin Zhao. But this time, he didn't go to pick up the Princess. Instead, he flashed again and appeared dozens of meters away. Looking at the falling Princess, he called out, "Come, Princess, come here!" In her panic, the Princess flashed again and appeared beside Qin Zhao. Good job. Continue." Qin Zhao still didn't pick up Princess. He kept moving forward. The Princess began to get used to the process and rhythm. About 10 minutes later, the Princess had already teleported 200 times. She was starting to get tired. Chen Zhao could clearly feel her exhaustion. It seemed that she couldn't teleport infinitely. Princess returned to the ground and started to recover quickly. Qin Zhao realized that she could absorb large amounts of spiritual qi from the ground. Soon, she recovered her energy. After familiarizing herself with her ability, she started to enjoy it. She was very excited. Although the ability couldn't be used for long-distance travel, it was enough for Princess. At least, she really liked this new ability. Just then, Zhang Tianyi called again. Qin Zhao felt that Zhang Tianyi was just bored and called to argue with him. First, he said that Qin Zhao was too ruthless, and that his disciple couldn't get out of bed for a year. Chen Zhao didn't believe it. He was a doctor. He knew how to make people lie in bed without losing half their bodies. To put it bluntly, Zhang Tianyi just wanted to get some benefits from Qin Zhao. Chen Zhao wouldn't go along with Zhang Tianyi. Chen Zhao still wanted to get some benefits from him. Just as Chen Zhao finished chatting with Zhang Tianyi, another call came from an unknown number. Hello, are you Mr. Chen? I am. Who is this? Why can't I get through to you? It's busy. Sorry, I was talking to a friend. May I know who you are? I was introduced by Mr. Lila Gavich. He said you're looking for a witch? Huh! Chen Zhao immediately answered. You know why I'm looking for a witch, right? I know. You're looking for Treasure Island, right? Since you know, can you take me to Treasure Island? Chen Zhao asked back. Do you know what price I have to pay to find it? The witch on the other end asked. I don't know. Tell me your conditions. It's fine as long as they're suitable. In history, a total of 3 witches led the way for pirates or adventurers. They found the legendary Treasure Island, and they all lost their lives. After a moment of silence, Chen Zhao said, So, do you reject or accept? I need a piece of demonic gold, an extremely powerful evil spirit, a gray eye, and $10 million. I don't have a problem with the $10 million you want, but your first 3 conditions put me in a difficult position. Is there demon gold in this world? Also, the extremely powerful evil spirit that you mentioned, what kind of powerful is it? And the gray eye, what's that? Actually, Chen Zhao had demonic gold. To Chen Zhao, demonic gold was the most useless thing. At the very least, Chen Zhao could go to hell and get as much as he wanted. The second condition was an extremely powerful evil spirit. This was a very general explanation. What did extremely powerful mean? Was it extremely powerful in the eyes of this witch or in his eyes? Moreover, what Chen Zhao didn't understand the most was the gray eye. He'd never heard of it before. Demonic gold exists in this world. As for how you get it, that's your problem. The extremely powerful evil spirit I mentioned has to be at least a disaster level. Chapter 2019. What's the disaster level? Chen Zhao often heard people call it a disaster level. However, there wasn't an exact number for it. It was just a concept. Chen Zhao had even killed a guy who called himself a disaster level. In reality, although the guy was bad, he was far from a disaster level. He was only slightly stronger than militants and his targets were mostly ordinary people. People like that definitely couldn't reach the true disaster level. Plus, he had to be an evil spirit. Where could Chen Zhao find a disaster level evil spirit? Pamela was a banshee now, so she should be one. But Chen Zhao couldn't hand Pamela over, right? There are 3 in China, Mount Tai Ghost King, Mount Mang Ghost King, and Tiandu Ghost King. There are 2 in Europe, Princess Spirit and Nether Wanderer. Africa has a Cursed Spirit. It's the only known disaster-level evil spirit in the world. The witch said. You just have to destroy any one of these and then use the soul container to collect their soul fragments. The witch paused and said, There is also the Ashen Eye. Among ordinary humans there is a kind of eye that can see ghosts. It is called the Yin-Yang Eye. On the contrary, there is the Ashen Eye. Some souls that wander the world can see things called shadow monsters. This kind of soul has the Ashen Eye. Your requests are getting more and more ridiculous, Chen Zhao said gloomily. The first and fourth requests were a piece of cake for him. If Chen Zhao needed demon gold, he could use it to build a castle. Chen Zhao's money was almost enough for him to build a house. However, the second and third requests were really making things difficult for him. Madam, I can pay you more and remove those difficult conditions. How about that? Mr. Chen, you have to understand that the price I have to pay to help you find the treasure island is my life. Compared to my life, I don't think my request is too much. After saying that, the witch hung up the phone. Buddhist duo, are you looking for help again? I'm done, but I don't have much hope. Buddha duo looked at his sister who had just entered the room. Azindo, how's the investigation going? The 3 ghost kings of Huaxia are impossible. Not only do the 3 ghost kings possess terrifying power, but they also have an army of evil spirits. Their territory is the land of the dead. The living have to take great risks to even enter their territory, let alone kill them. Moreover, they have certain connections with the Huaxia government and the Huaxia supernatural world. If we attack them, it will be no different from suicide. Jacinder's face was extremely gloomy. Obviously, this was not an outcome that they could accept. What about the soul of the European princess and the wanderer of the netherworld? Is it possible? The princess's spirit has always been regarded as the holy spirit of the royal family. To harm the princess's spirit, one must first face the British government and the royal family. The difficulty is not much lower than the 3 ghost kings of Huaxia. Azindo shook her head. As for the wanderer of the nether, it is said that no one has ever been able to find him. He will only appear when he wishes to appear in front of others. Then, when he appeared, were there any signs? Or a pattern? There are no patterns or signs at all. He seems to appear at random. What about the one in Africa? Is it possible? The situation in Africa is very complicated right now. Various unnatural forces and the Nature Guardian Alliance are fighting, but the spirit of Juan has never appeared. There are even some rumors in the cult that it leads. It's hard to tell whether it's true or not. Azindo looked at her sister. There are many Buddhists. Even if we can find any one of them, even if we have divine gear, it will be very difficult. I think we should find outsiders. I'm also looking, but the few people I contacted, after I explained my request, almost all of them called me a lunatic. Although the one I contacted just now didn't call me a lunatic, he also responded with a very shocked attitude. Africa? Qin Zhao pondered. Qin Zhao remembered that when West reported to him 2 days ago, he had said that they were going to deal with the spirit of Juan. Just then, Fei Lai said, "Chen, I'm going to sleep. Aren't you going to cultivate today? You go first. I'll make a call first." Qin Zhao called West. "West, did anything happen today?" "We found the spirit of Juan's nest. We've been preparing for the past 2 days. Tomorrow, we plan to sneak into the nest and end this war." "Oh, do you need my help?" "No, we can do it." "Okay. Be careful." Qin Zhao's mind raced. The spirit of Juan? The spirit of Juan that West wanted to deal with matched the witch's description. However, Qin Zhao didn't ask too much in case West became suspicious. If he didn't ask, he wouldn't know where the nest was. It seemed that he should find some time to go to Africa. When Qin Zhao returned to his room, Fei Lai had already changed into her new clothes. Qin Zhao felt all the blood in his body expand. He went up and rubbed Fei Lai. "Don't change. You have to take it off anyway." Qin Zhao and Fei Lai always liked to play with different styles. It helped stabilize and maintain their relationship. In Fei Lai's cloakroom, there was a compartment for all kinds of sexy clothes. Qin Zhao liked this kind of game and never got tired of it. Sometimes, they could play for an entire night. Qin Zhao's hand groped around naughtily. "What are you acting today?" "I'm the judge. You're my prisoner. Qin Zhao, I want to play your game too. I think you humans call this role-playing." Belial's voice always appeared at inappropriate times. However, everyone got used to it. Qin Zhao was no exception. Now, Qin Zhao was used to playing with Fei Lai while communicating with Belial in his mind. Of course, most of their interactions were bare-chested. "My queen, I want to ask you something." Qin Zhao was exercising with all his might. "What do you want to ask? Do you know about the Grey Eye?" "Yes." "Tell me. Satisfy me first. I don't like to talk about other things when I'm doing business." Qin Zhao was speechless. "Are you confusing business with other people's business?" Chapter 2020. You can tell me now, right? Qin Zhao had spent a lot of effort to feed Belial. Grey Eyes is actually a type of demon bloodline, but people with this bloodline are usually hidden. Only after death and the soul leaves the body will the power of the bloodline appear. Demon? But I heard that people with grey eyes can see shadow monsters. What's going on? Do you know the meaning of Grey Eye's existence? Belial asked. I don't. What's the meaning of Grey Eye's existence? Existence was existence. What meaning was there? Did you have to say that existence was reasonable? If it was according to this point of view, it would be impossible to make sense of anything. The true master of the Ashen Eyes is a demon called Desolation. Desolation is a demon created by the Demon King, the King of Gluttony. Then they should be subordinates of the King of Gluttony? No, the King of Gluttony created them to eat, Ezechiel said. Eat? You mean the King of Gluttony wants to eat them? No. Belial shook his head. Belial shook his head. In hell, the most famous gourmet would be the King of Gluttony, Beelzebub. He's eaten everything, including a secondary demon king. Chen Zhao's face twitched. He glanced at Belial. Do you call that a gourmet? Don't get caught up in my description, Belial said coolly. But that's just Beelzebub's personality. To him, there's nothing he can't eat. But one day, one of his subordinates told him that there's something he hasn't eaten before. Chen Zhao looked up at Belial. Clearly, the main point was coming. That demon subordinate of Beelzebub accidentally entered an alternate dimension and devoured some of the creatures there. Belial said calmly. Belia said calmly. Then Beelzebub remembered it. He tried to find that alternate space, but to no avail. Later he thought of a way. Based on that subordinate demon's description, he created the Withered Tribe. The Withered Tribe has the ability to lock onto that alternate space. Then, Beelzebub successfully found that alternate space through the Withered Tribe's ability. And then? Beelzebub swallowed half of the alternate dimension. Half of the shadow monster you were talking about also died. Beelzebub swallowed them all. Chen Zhao shuddered. The King of Hell was unimaginably scary. To create a race for food. And in order to eat, it directly devoured half of the space. How big is that alternate dimension? Probably a few times bigger than the human world. Chen Zhao's jaw dropped. It was several times bigger than the human world, but Beelzebub had swallowed half of it. Just how big was the King of Gluttony? Of course it's not that exaggerated. Although it's big, it's not as big as you think it is. However, this is its ability. If it thinks it's necessary, it can swallow the entire alternate dimension. The reason why it didn't do that is because it thinks that the shadow monsters in the alternate dimension taste good. It hopes that they can restore their numbers and eat them again. How much time did he spend? About 1,000 years ago. Qin Zhao didn't dare to imagine if this guy set his eyes on Earth and humans. Would he do the same thing? For a bite of food he worked hard for 1,000 years and even created a race. Qin Zhao didn't know that he wasn't a gourmet, but he definitely deserved the title of top foodie. Are you thinking that Beelzebub will target humans? I can't help but worry, especially after hearing your story. The mortal world is the main world. The laws of the world are very complete. It's impossible for Beelzebub to go over. Plus, humans aren't rare. At least for us demons, there will always be humans who believe in us who will sacrifice their own kind to us. So, to us, it's not too difficult to eat humans whenever we want. Isn't it inappropriate to talk about eating humans in front of humans? You're the one who wanted to talk about this. Fine, let's change the topic. Don't you want to know the follow-up story? There's a follow-up story? More accurately, it's not a story, Belia said. Beelzebub created the desolation with humans as the blueprint, so the desolation is very similar to humans in all aspects. As a promise with the King of Gluttony, the desolation returned to the human world as it wished. The King of Gluttony's conditions were also very clear. He could let them return to the human world, but the next time he wanted to eat them, the desolation would still have to sacrifice its power. However, the remaining shadow monsters from the alternate space hated the desolation because of the King of Gluttony. It's an unforgettable hatred. Shouldn't the person they should hate the most be the King of Gluttony? They also hate, but what can they do against the King of Gluttony? They can't do anything. No matter how angry they are, they can't affect the King of Gluttony at all. The King of Gluttony's power is not something they can resist, so they can only target their hatred on the desolation race. Belia paused before continuing. Although Beelzebub is the demon king of hell, he's still very trustworthy. He used a lot of effort to send the desolation race back to the human world, but when they returned, they found themselves facing the revenge of the shadow monsters. A large number of the desolation race were slaughtered. This is karma for attracting the king of hell. However, the shadow monsters are creatures from the alternate space after all, so the desolation race was able to breathe in the end. They were not completely wiped out. After that, they mixed their blood with humans to continue the desolation race's legacy. The shadow monsters never gave up on killing the descendants of the desolation race. They seemed to be able to lock onto the descendants of the desolation race, then trick them into the alternate space and kill them. Speaking of which, after Beelzebub heard this news, he was very regretful. He shouldn't have sent the desolation race to the human world. However, he could send the desolation race to the human world, but he could not bring them back to hell. He did not even have the ability to protect them. But if the king of gluttony can create one desolation race, he can create a second one, right? There doesn't seem to be much meaning for the shadow monsters to hunt down the descendants of the desolation race. As long as Beelzebub, the king of gluttony, still exists, the shadow monsters will never be able to escape the tragic fate of being shrouded by the demon king of hell. Chapter 2021. That's not the case, Belia said. Belia said, even if he was the king of gluttony, he couldn't just casually create a race. He wasn't a god. For him, creating the withered tribe was his greatest achievement. He couldn't create another one. At least, it would be very difficult, because creating a whole new race is not easy even for kings of hell like me and him. So you're saying that if the lonely race is wiped out, the shadow monsters have a high chance of escaping the king of gluttony's threat? Indeed. Are the lonely race really that rare now? Unless the withered desolation clan is dragged into an alternate dimension and killed by the shadow monsters, they will always be reincarnated. Their bloodline is not in the body, but in the soul. Because of this, the inheritance of their clan's bloodline is so troublesome. If they really reproduce through sexual intercourse like ordinary humans, even the shadow monsters cannot kill them all. Then how do they produce offspring? Chen Zhao asked curiously. The process is very troublesome. You won't understand even if I tell you. So you don't have the gray eye? No. Only the king of gluttony might have it. Of course, even I can't be sure. Should he contact the king of gluttony? Chen Zhao sank into deep thought. Chen Zhao wasn't afraid of facing the king of gluttony. After all, even if he did, he would only say that it was a projection of the king of gluttony, like Samuel. Moreover, it would only be his familiar and wouldn't be a threat to him. Chen Zhao was basically familiar with how to communicate with the demons he wanted to communicate with. However, he could only confirm a certain category. For example, if Chen Zhao wanted to communicate with gluttony, he might only communicate with a subordinate, not the king of gluttony. Usually, the stronger one was, the stronger the desire when communicating would be. Then, the more advanced and powerful the demon that represented the desire would be. However, there was no accurate value for desire. So, Chen Zhao wasn't sure if he could contact the king of gluttony. Also, Chen Zhao was probably the only person in the world who would do something so crazy to contact the king of hell for a gray eye. Chen Zhao decided to solve other problems first. For example, a disaster-level evil spirit. At the moment, Chen Zhao was more inclined to be the cursed spirit that had appeared in Africa. However, Chen Zhao was troubled as to how to do it. After all, he had no idea where the spirit of cursing was hiding. Chen Zhao thought for a long time and decided to go to Africa tomorrow. Some people say that if you want to know whether a person is evil, just look at what he did in Africa. Some people go to Africa as volunteers to protect nature. Others, on the other hand, went to Africa to hunt for fun. This kind of hunting was not for survival, nor was it to solve the problem of food and clothing. Without any grudges, he wanted to prove his strength and courage with a hunting rifle in his hand. On the other hand, it was purely for the thrill of killing. Qin Zhao couldn't understand where this pleasure came from. Was it to show that humans were superior to these animals? Or was it nature, where the strong preyed on the weak? If they wanted to show off their courage and strength, it would be better to go into battle bare-chested. If they really dared to go bare-chested, Qin Zhao would applaud them. The next day, Qin Zhao appeared on the grassland. It was only 100 kilometers away from West's gathering point. Qin Zhao considered walking around the area. He wanted to see if he could find anything. Other than the 3 polar regions, there was almost no better starry sky than here. Of course, if it was just 1 or 2 nights, it would be a great pleasure. But humans in this era were used to the convenience brought by technology. For example, Qin Zhao said so. Many people said that the bad habits of humans pushed the progress of civilization forward. A male lion appeared before Qin Zhao. It wasn't a happy meeting. Usually, even lions, the top predators on the African grassland, wouldn't leave their prides easily. Because the night was equally dangerous for them. If they encountered a pack of hyenas, they would be in trouble too. Hyenas were wild beasts that even lions dared to provoke. Moreover, the lions only hunted female lions. Most of the time, lions were only responsible for mating. Even though they were apex predators, they were rarely in charge of hunting. It seemed like a good position. Actually, lions did physical work too. For one, they had to be busy for their low fertility. Dozens of times a day was normal. There was once a researcher who recorded that the machine was used 200 times a day. Even Qin Zhao was shocked by this. But a lion's position wasn't completely stable. They would be challenged by other lions. Especially the young ones who had their own offspring. When young lions became adults, they would either snatch their father's authority in the pride, or they would be chased out of the pride. The young lion before Qin Zhao was chased out of the pride. Without the cooperation of the pride, its food became scarce. Although lions were apex predators, their greatest advantage was their strong physique and the apex strength of the African savanna. Speed was not their advantage. But the animals that lived on the grassland and were on the lion's menu either ran faster or outnumbered them. This caused the lone lion to be in an awkward situation. The hungry lion was so hungry that it couldn't be choosy. Even though Qin Zhao maintained a dangerous aura. But the young lion still wanted to find some confidence from Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao thought for a while and tossed a piece of meat to the young kid. The lion sniffed. It didn't seem dangerous. It was in great need of food now. As for challenging this fellow who was full of danger, the lion's simple mind was still very clear about it. So, it decided to eat the food Qin Zhao stole. It didn't want to find confidence from Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao wasn't sure what the meat Qin Zhao tossed to the lion was. But it was definitely edible. Anyway, it was Qin Zhao's prey. The lion tore at the meat Qin Zhao tossed to it with big mouthfuls. The meat was very big, enough for it to have a full meal. It was its first full meal in 3 days. When it met Qin Zhao, it was prepared to fight to the death. To it, if it didn't eat today, it would face the threat of death. Fortunately, it had encountered Qin Zhao and not other people or predators. Chapter 2022. 20 minutes later, the young male lion had eaten about 50 kilograms of meat. This was probably the most satisfying meal of its life. Qin Zhao sat on a protruding rock and watched the lion. Pet owners all knew that watching their pets eat when they were feeding was actually a kind of enjoyment. This was an interaction between the owner and the pet. Qin Zhao didn't plan on bringing it back. It was mainly because it was already an adult. There were 2 cubs at home, Simba and Nana. If he really brought the lion back, Simba might be killed by it in the future. This was decided by their social form. It wasn't because they were evil, or anything else. All Qin Zhao could do was feed it. I have to go back to work. I hope you can become the king of this grassland. Qin Zhao patted the lion lightly. The lion looked up at Qin Zhao's back. Qin Zhao didn't want to interact with it too much. Most of the time, volunteers on the African savanna would not come into contact with animals. Even if they needed to study animals, they would keep their distance most of the time. The problem with interacting with animals was that animals had a simple way of thinking. They felt that volunteers were good people, so they had the same attitude toward all humans. But not all the humans who came here were good people. If there were volunteers, there would be poachers. In the previous century, a volunteer had saved an African elephant. Because of this, he had many interactions with the elephant. Elephants are highly intelligent creatures. They are animals that know how to be grateful. So, the rescued elephant mistakenly thought that it could interact with humans. In the end, it was killed by poachers. This was the cruel truth. It was killed by a human it liked. This was not a single case. There were many precedents in the world. Among the most evil crimes that humans considered, poaching was the only one that didn't target humans. The others were drug trafficking, organ smuggling, and human trafficking. Poaching was a crime against animals, but it was more often a massacre and murder. Qin Zhao also didn't want to interact with the lion because of him. He wanted it to think that humans were all trustworthy. This was why Qin Zhao didn't interact with it too much. The lion chased after Qin Zhao. Suddenly, Qin Zhao emitted a strong aura of danger. The male lion's hair stood on end. It turned around and ran away. If this could make it develop the habit of hiding when it saw humans in the future. Qin Zhao's efforts didn't go to waste. Suddenly, a figure appeared before him. He was a big man wearing a vest, but his body exuded a majestic aura. Poacher? The big guy stared at Qin Zhao coldly. This big fellow was Malone. But he soon realized that Qin Zhao wasn't a poacher. After all, he didn't bring any equipment. Qin Zhao's clothes were even a little too casual. This gave Malone the wrong impression. This fellow was not walking at night on the dangerous African savanna, but taking a stroll in his own back garden. This guy was definitely not an ordinary person. While Marlin was studying Qin Zhao was also studying Marlin. They were judging each other based on their own habits and experiences. Unfortunately, they both treated each other as cultists. Qin Zhao saw red lines on Marlin's arms and body. These patterns were very similar to the Satanism he had encountered in the past. They borrowed the power of demons through similar patterns. Malone had a similar pattern on his body as well. Although they were slightly different, Qin Zhao felt that they were magic runes of the same type. Although there were slight differences, Qin Zhao felt that they were magic runes of the same type. Because of this, Qin Zhao thought that Marlin was a cultist. Apart from Qin Zhao's clothes, Marlin also thought that Qin Zhao was a cultist. It was also because Qin Zhao's eyes were shining and he was definitely not one of the spiritualists in the settlement. Among the spiritualists in the settlement, black-haired and black-eyed Asians were easier to remember. Without thinking, Qin Zhao turned and ran. Of course, Marlin chased after him. After Qin Zhao turned and ran, he was even more certain of Qin Zhao's identity. He was definitely a cultist. Marlin must have discovered Qin Zhao's identity, which was why he panicked and lost his composure. Stop! Marlin suddenly pushed Qin Zhao to the ground. Right now, Qin Zhao looked very panicked. He raised his hand and aimed it at Marlin. An electric arc shot out from his palm. The electric arc struck Malone, but Malone only shuddered slightly. By now, he was completely sure that Qin Zhao was a cultist. Although there were quite a number of spiritualists in this gathering area, there were still quite a few of them. But none of them used thunder magic. Marlin raised his fist and punched Qin Zhao's face. Qin Zhao had to act like he was in pain. Then Marlin lifted the defenseless Qin Zhao up. This was also the first time someone had lifted Qin Zhao up. If you dare to attack me again, I'll break your limbs. No, I won't dare. Don't kill me, don't kill me. Right now, Qin Zhao was like a drama queen. His entire body was acting. Right now, Qin Zhao felt like a cowardly spiritualist. Marlin didn't notice anything. He seemed to really think that Qin Zhao had surrendered. But at this moment, a chill came from the shadows without warning. Marlin felt the sneak attack. But he didn't dodge. Instead, he took the attack head-on. I knew that you cowards would have an ambush. Marlin snorted. Ambush? Qin Zhao was confused. Who was this third party that had suddenly appeared? Was it the group of managers that West had mentioned before? The sneak attack on Marlin was a black arrow. The black arrow hit Marlin's chest. It went in slightly. It only pierced the skin a little. "Didn't you ask about my strength before ambushing me?" Marlin snorted. Qin Zhao wanted to stand up, but Marlin stomped him back to the ground. This was the most embarrassing moment Qin Zhao had ever been in his career. "Don't move, or else I'll stomp your head into pieces." With his face on the ground, Qin Zhao looked at the black arrow that had failed his sneak attack. Qin Zhao smelled a pungent smell from the arrow. It was poisoned. Just then, a dozen or so people suddenly rushed out. Qin Zhao could see clearly that they weren't good people. They gave off an aura that Qin Zhao didn't like. Were they the cultists? Qin Zhao was confused, but he wasn't completely sure. He seemed to have gotten something wrong. Marlin seemed more like a good person, but the people who had ambushed him gave off a familiar aura. Chapter 2023. However, it didn't matter whether Marin was a good or bad person or whether they were cultists. His attitude was clear. He would pretend to be weak today. Marin's aura was strong and his combat ability was off the charts. Every move was filled with violence. Qin Zhao saw his own shadow in Marlin. Their fighting styles were too similar. These cultists were here to die. Moreover, they were indeed determined to die. They knew that their job was to be cannon fodder. Moreover, they had done their jobs very dutifully. Marin tore the dozen cultists apart. The entire process was very easy. However, just then, Marin suddenly realized that the small wound on his chest was starting to turn black. It was just a small wound that had been infected by the poison. Now, the black poison had spread to a palm-sized area. Marin tried to force the poison out of his body. The black poison was being expelled bit by bit. But just then, the second wave of attacks came. Marin had to give up on forcing the poison out and fight again. However, the second wave of attacks was much fiercer than the first. Marin finally realized that something was wrong. He seemed to be affected by the black poison. His power was flowing out rapidly. Even though he had borrowed the power of the Nature Guardian, his power was still flowing out. This trap was too targeted at him. It wasn't that Marin hadn't faced danger in the past, but he could resolve it with his power every time. However, the trap this time was different from the past. This trap made it impossible for him to maintain his peak condition. The black poison wasn't a vicious poison. Instead, it was a poison that could drain one's power continuously. If it was a normal poison, Marin could use the power of the Nature Guardian to get rid of it. After all, the Nature Guardian was a poisonous dragon. There was almost no poison in the world that could threaten it. But almost didn't mean that there was none. And this poison was the perfect counter to Marin. What made Marin panic the most was that his body instinctively borrowed more of the Nature Guardian's power. Because this was his contract with the Nature Guardian. When Marin started borrowing the Nature Guardian's power, the Nature Guardian's power would allow Marin to recover to his peak condition no matter what. But because of the poison, Marin's body was always weak. As the battle progressed, the poison spread throughout his body and he grew weaker and weaker. The amount of power he needed to borrow also increased. His body was like a bottomless pit. He was constantly borrowing the power of the Nature Guardian. At this moment, Malone finally realized something. This trap wasn't just for him. It was targeted at the Guardians of Nature. If he was given a stable environment, he could completely expel the black poison from his body. But now, he couldn't calm down at all. The cultists surrounding him didn't give him any time to rest. Moreover, he did not intend to kill him directly. They wanted to use this method to torture Malone. At the same time, it would weaken the Nature Guardian. Oh no! Malone's in trouble. Terry Boyle suddenly knelt on the ground weakly. West hurriedly helped Terry up. What's wrong? I have a contract with Malone. This contract allows us to sense each other's condition. Terry Boyle's face was very pale. Malone is constantly borrowing my power. Under normal circumstances, he would have exploded from my power, but that didn't happen. I can feel his anxiety and fear. We can't wait any longer. We have to save Terry Boyle as soon as possible. But that's not part of our plan. West frowned. I have no other choice. Terry Boyle's face was very pale. West and the others had never seen Terry Boyd in such a weak state. Do you know where he is? Lord, I do. They seem to be heading in that direction. That direction. That direction seems to be the nest of the cursed spirits, West said solemnly. It looks like they are prepared. Under normal circumstances, we should just wait and see. Of course, this was the best choice on a tactical level. But Terry Boyle and Marlon had a deep relationship. Aside from their contract, Malone was also Terry Boyle's adopted son. Therefore, it was impossible for Terry Boyle to turn a blind eye to the danger Marlon was in. They had also made a deal with Terry Boyd. If you think it's dangerous, forget it. I'll take care of it myself. All right, stop talking, West said. I'll inform the others. We'll leave in half an hour. West, you don't have to pity me. Don't be bound by the contract. I'm the one who wants to take the risk this time. It's not within our contract. Even if you ignore it, I have nothing to say. I won't blame you. You're saying that on purpose, aren't you? You're making it harder for us to watch. West rolled his eyes at Terry. Gaia said, All right, no matter what danger it is, we don't care. Plus, we're looking forward to the challenge and danger. If we really encounter something we can't handle, we'll call our president, West said. Before that, let's set up a signal circuit in case the signal is blocked when we enter the cursed spirit's nest. Signal circuit was a military term. It was usually used in areas where the signal was blocked. Through a simple circuit, a signal could be sent back through a wired method. Then, communication could be achieved. Of course, this kind of signal circuit could only be used in a small area. After all, they couldn't carry too many large devices in a single operation. West gathered everyone in front of him and explained the situation to them. After being stubborn for so long, you've finally faced reality and are ready to compromise, Harold said calmly. We can't just stand by and do nothing about Terry's situation. However, this operation is extremely risky, so we must be fully prepared. West didn't want to ask Chen Zhao for help either, but sometimes stubbornness couldn't guarantee his and his companions' safety. In hot-blooded comics, people relied on their strong willpower and stubbornness to defeat their enemies. But in reality, it was almost impossible for that to happen. Their enemies couldn't just injure them, and they couldn't stand up again and again. Chapter 2024. Right now, Chen Zhao was sitting in the open-air compartment of a small truck. There were 3 cultists with him. Of course, there was also Malone, who was tied up tightly with magic ropes. Even so, Malone was so weak that he couldn't stand up. The black poison had already weakened him to the minimum. Fellow cultists! A cultist patted Chen Zhao's shoulder. Good job. If you didn't attract that guy's attention, our ambush wouldn't have succeeded. Unfortunately, my companions have all died. Chen Zhao cried silently. Chen Zhao worshipped his acting skills like crazy. The tears came out of nowhere. No, they've just returned to God's embrace, the cultist beside him said. It was great to have a bunch of cultists who didn't know him. Fortunately, Malone thought that Chen Zhao was a cultist, so the other cultists also thought that Chen Zhao was their companion. They thought that the suicide team had decided on their own. Chen Zhao would attract Malone's attention first, and then ambush them. They even blamed Chen Zhao for Malone's poisoning. After all, the suicide team was dead. Chen Zhao was the only one left. No one would testify against him. Plus, Chen Zhao did deserve a lot of credit for their success this time. At least, that was what Chen Zhao thought too. Even so, the trap this time still cost the lives of at least 30 cultists. Even though Ma Long was poisoned, he still managed to kill more than 30 people. Even now, Chen Zhao still didn't know which god they believed in. Of course, this wasn't important. But Qin Zhao didn't want to expose himself. There were 2 small trucks in front and behind. They drove into a valley. There was no light at the bottom of the valley. A river about 10 meters wide flowed in the valley. However, the river seemed to have been completely polluted. Even so, there were still living things in the polluted river. However, the creatures that could survive in this magically polluted river were all twisted creatures. This was definitely a nightmare for ordinary people. Due to the terrain and the magic array, this place was completely isolated from the rest of the world. Even Qin Zhao's small world was blocked. When Qin Zhao was outside, he couldn't sense the situation in the valley at all. After entering, he couldn't sense the outside either. This place gave Qin Zhao a rather uncomfortable feeling. Malone's reaction was even more intense, and he began to vomit. The truck stopped. Qin Zhao and the cultist got off. Qin Zhao dragged Marlin out of the car. "Sir, I bet you didn't expect our identities to be swapped like this." Marlin was in a sorry state, but he still gritted his teeth and looked up at Qin Zhao. "Do you think you've won? Facts speak louder than words, don't they?" Qin Zhao didn't plan to attack directly. The black poison these cultists used seemed to be very troublesome. Although he was immune to all poisons, he wasn't sure if this black poison would work on him. This was because some magical poisons were not necessarily classified as poisons. Therefore, he felt that he should be more cautious and find the antidote first. "Give him to me." A cultist took Malone from Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao even waved enthusiastically and said goodbye to Marlin. When Marlin looked at Qin Zhao, his eyes were practically shooting out flames. The entrance was on a mountain wall. The entrance led to the lair of the vengeful spirit, which was underground. Qin Zhao walked along the tunnel and realized that it wasn't very stuffy here. In fact, it felt a bit cold. Rough tools had been used to chisel the path. It wasn't as smooth or bright as the bases or labs Qin Zhao had been to in the past. There were torches along the way, but there were always some shadows of potholes. There were many snakes here. They hid in the shadows. Occasionally, they would make hissing sounds. When Qin Zhao entered the lair of the cursed spirit, he saw a hill made of skulls. From top to bottom, the hill was piled up like a pyramid. There were probably millions of skulls here. Even though Qin Zhao had seen many big scenes, he was still shocked by this super view. However, these skulls were from different ages. Some were brand new, while others were very old and black. "Don't stare for too long. Death will swallow you, newbie." Qin Zhao seemed to be really entranced. He didn't even know when someone had come to him. It was a white-haired old man. He wasn't black, but his skin was very dark as if he'd been exposed to the sun. Qin Zhao could feel a surging vitality in him, but it was very strange. He probably had some kind of ability that allowed him to absorb vitality from others. However, this vitality didn't belong to him. He had to use his own magic to suppress the life that he'd stolen. Qin Zhao had seen quite a few of these evil spells. The old man's methods weren't very clever, but they were very despicable. However, he had to admit that this kind of spell was very powerful. It was like a robber robbing a bank. The money couldn't be used normally, but there would always be unorthodox ways for the robber to squander it. "You have no respect for death. You're not devout." The old man looked at Qin Zhao. Had he been seen through? Qin Zhao was secretly on guard, planning to attack. "Hee, those who join us are not pure believers. We don't reject believers who have other motives. As long as you can show your value, money, women, power, or even power, you can get whatever you want. But if you are worthless, then you will become a sacrifice." "I just did a good deed, sir." Qin Zhao lowered his head, appearing very humble. "I hope to be rewarded." "Oh? Tell me about your deed." "We captured Marone and successfully poisoned him. Our plan succeeded. I didn't do anything in the battle, but Marone was poisoned. I'm the biggest contributor." "Oh? Marone's already been captured?" "Good, very good." "Ha." The old man laughed. "You did well. You deserve a reward. What do you want?" Qin Zhao licked his lips, looking very greedy. Everything. Be it power, money, or women, I want it all. Qin Zhao felt that the more greedy he was, the more difficult it would be to expose himself. Your deed is great, but it's not enough. Come with me to receive your reward. Chapter 2025. Following the old man, Qin Zhao was brought into a cave. The cave was filled with a strong, pungent smell. There were some simple living facilities, but most of them were magic materials and equipment. Coupled with the dim light source, it made the place look very gloomy and scary. Go over there and lie on that bed. Qin Zhao looked at the bed the old man was pointing at. There were still bloodstains on it. It was obvious that in this gloomy cave, on this bed, something terrible had happened. The environment here was already very uncomfortable for Qin Zhao. Just the filth of the bed was enough to make Qin Zhao refuse to lie on it. Can I refuse? Qin Zhao asked. If I tell you to lie on it, then lie on it. Don't talk. I don't want the reward. Qin Zhao took a step back, as if he was going to escape. Just then, the old man released a spell with his finger. Countless tree roots extended from the entrance of the cave. They crisscrossed like a spider web, completely blocking the entrance. Don't think about going anywhere. No one will disturb us. I like you a lot. I'm not interested in men, especially someone as old as you. Qin Zhao looked at the old man in disdain. Cooperate. That way you'll suffer less. I like to be in control, so I hope you can cooperate. Qin Zhao didn't pretend anymore. The old man had already blocked his own way. What else did he have to worry about? A smile appeared on Qin Zhao's face. How dare you! The old man raised his skinny arm. Like an old tree root, his arm instantly wrapped around Qin Zhao. The root wrapped around Qin Zhao. He could feel it trying to dig into his skin. Qin Zhao grabbed a section of the root and released a strong electric current. Crack! The root exploded and the old man took 2 steps back. The old man stared at Qin Zhao in shock. Old man, let me ask you something. I hope that our conversation can continue peacefully, don't you think so? Suddenly, Qin Zhao kicked the old man and sent him flying. I said don't try to sneak up on me when we're peaceful. The old man clutched his chest and slowly stood up. His powerful life force also came into play. The place Qin Zhao had kicked was rapidly healing. Countless spikes suddenly pierced out of the old man's body and stabbed toward Qin Zhao. Most of the time, fancy magic was far inferior to a straightforward attack. Qin Zhao didn't care about the thorn in the old man at all. Even if he turned into a porcupine, Qin Zhao would still punch back. The spikes on the old man's body did not have any effect. Qin Zhao punched him into the cave wall. The old man saw that things weren't looking good. This guy was more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. The old man immediately wanted to escape. But Qin Zhao had already grabbed the old man's mouth. Don't run or ask for help. I'll definitely break your jaw before you make a sound. Qin Zhao smiled. What do you want? I can give you everything you want. I'm curious what you can give me now. Power, I can give you even more power. Ha! Qin Zhao looked at his defeated opponent. What makes you think you can give me more power? Based on your ignorance? Or your humbleness? I can give you money. I have a lot of money. I have hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. Forget it, Qin Zhao said. I just want the black poison that attacked Marone and the antidote. That's the deadly plague. I have the poison, but you have to get the antidote from the deadly poisoner. He created the poison, so only he has the antidote. The deadly poisoner? Where? In the cave on the upper right. Qin Zhao dragged the old man to the door. Which cave? The main part of the spirit of cursed nest was like an inner beehive. The inner walls extended downward and were all caves of various sizes. That cave, the old man said, pointing at the entrance of a cave. Thank you. Qin Zhao crushed the old man to death. In order to prevent the old man's powerful life force from prolonging his life, Qin Zhao twisted off his head and destroyed his body. There were no guards in the nest, Everyone here was a cultist. They believed in the spirit of cursed and saw it as a god. They lived here and were proud of it. Anyway, Qin Zhao couldn't understand their mentality. Of course, there were also some cultists who joined the cult with ulterior motives. The old man had also said that a large portion of the cultists joined to satisfy their own desires. Qin Zhao went to the cave the old man pointed at. There was a naked woman living in the cave. Her face was tattooed with a picture of a flower. On the ground of the cave, there were more than 10 naked men lying on the ground. More accurately, they were naked corpses. All the men were as skinny as a stick. Seeing Qin Zhao standing in the cave, the woman licked her lips and waved at him. Come. Qin Zhao walked into the cave and immediately smelled the strong fragrance of flowers in the air. The fragrance should be an aphrodisiac. After being spread by magic, it would make people feel uncontrollable lust. Qin Zhao did have a reaction, but he wouldn't lose his mind. The aphrodisiac effect was far from making him lose his mind. How can you feel lust for this woman? Belial's voice appeared in Qin Zhao's mind. She's too low class. Just then, the woman had already walked to Qin Zhao, twisting her waist. Her slender fingers slowly brushed across Qin Zhao's chest. She was very confident in her aphrodisiac spell. She believed that Qin Zhao would lose his mind like the corpses on the ground. But the next moment, Qin Zhao grabbed the woman's neck. Can you tell me where the death plague poison and antidote are? The woman struggled. Only when Qin Zhao let go did she finally breathe. Why aren't you affected? Are you impotent? Or gay? Qin Zhao lifted a foot and kicked the woman away. As a man, the woman's words had hurt him. Let's get down to business. Qin Zhao stood before the woman. Can you tell me where you put the death plague poison and antidote? That's death plague stuff. How can I have it? The woman screamed. All right, can you tell me where Deathly Poison Man is? Qin Zhao roughly understood. The old man had thought that the woman could deal with him, so he purposely led him to this cave. After getting the woman's directions, Qin Zhao killed her as well. There was no point in keeping the woman. He would expose himself. Chapter 2026. Soon, Qin realized that he went to the wrong door again. The woman clearly had the same idea as the old man. She led Qin to a butcher's house full of corpse collectors. Then, Qin also added this butcher to his collection. This time, Qin didn't even ask. He sent him on his way. There was really nothing to talk about with butchers like this. Qin randomly walked into another cave. This time, it was a woman with a sinister face. She used black magic to attack Qin. Qin was stunned by the sudden attack. If he took her back, he would send her to hell. Qin Zhao went to another cave. This time, the owner was a cowardly man. Friend, can you tell me where Deathly Poisoner is? The cowardly man looked at Qin with fear in his eyes. Qin wouldn't let his guard down just because of the man's cowardly gaze. Everyone here was a cultist. His gaze and expression might just be a disguise. I'm Deathly Poisoner. At least that's what they call me. You said you're Deathly Poisoner? Qin tilted his head. Just from his name alone, this Deathly Poison Man was an extremely dangerous man. He was also sinister and despicable, good at using poison. But this man didn't look like a sinister person at all. However, there were indeed many bottles and jars in this cave. It did look like a place for chemical experiments. After some hesitation, Qin was even more convinced that this man was disguising himself. Fine, I'll tell you the truth. I want the death plague poison and the antidote. Who are you? You're not a cultist? Deathly Poisoner looked at Qin in shock. Qin glanced at him. Cultists wouldn't call themselves cultists. They called themselves believers of God or believers of God. Of course, even so, Qin didn't let his guard down. If you help me escape from here, I will give you the antidote to the death plague. Escape? Qin squinted at Deathly Poisoner. Why do you want to escape? I was captured and brought here. I didn't want to come here at all. Deathly Poisoner explained anxiously. Chin crossed his arms and stared at deathly poisoner. But I don't trust you, Jen said bluntly. How can you prove your words? I can't prove it. What proof can I have? Deathly Poison Man said helplessly. Give me the antidote and don't do anything else. Just hide in the cave and don't come out no matter what happens outside. If you do, I'll kill you. Jen wasn't completely sure if Death Poison Man was good or evil, nor could he be sure if his words were true. Therefore, Chin made a compromise. If he disobeyed and left his cave, no matter if he was good or bad, he might expose himself. Therefore, there was no problem in killing them directly. If he continued to hide in the cave, Chin would have plenty of time to determine whether he was good or evil. The Deathly Poison Man laughed bitterly. I can't get out at all. If I were to leave the cave and be seen by those cultists, they would attack me and even kill me. These are the poison and antidote for the plague. The Deathly Poison Man handed 2 bottles to Jen. The red one is the antidote, and the black one is the poison. Of course, Jen would not believe Deathly Poison Man's words. Jen caught another cultist from next door to test the poison. It was indeed a symptom of the plague. After using the antidote, Jen was sure that the antidote worked. Jen was not in a hurry to act. Instead, he wandered around the nest. He had to admit that there were all kinds of cultists here. Moreover, many of them were quite strong. They even had their own awareness. They knew what they were doing. Actually, there were many cultists like Jen who wandered around. There were even some evil cultists who walked around with the sole purpose of killing. Killing was not forbidden here, nor was it forbidden to kill each other. As long as one was strong and capable, killing each other was allowed. Although to Jen, this was completely inhumane. Nevertheless, this attitude reduced the possibility of Jen being found out. Anyone could be killed here. Suddenly, there was a huge cave entrance in front of him. There was even a wooden fence at the entrance. It looked different from the other caves. Jen walked to the entrance and heard screams coming from inside. Jen walked into the cave without realizing it. He saw Malone being tied up. 2 cultists were torturing him with magic. In just a short period of time, Marin was already covered with cuts and bruises. Jen recognized one of the torturers. When he saw Jen, he stared at him coldly. This is not a place you should be. But I'm already here. What should I do? Get out. Jen walked up and grabbed the cultist's neck. Sorry, I don't know how to get out. You. Jen tossed the corpse on the ground. Another cultist saw Jen kill someone here. He immediately yelled, Why are you doing this? Even if you have a grudge against him, you shouldn't do it here. Jen raised his finger and pointed at the second cultist. Seeing this, the cultist immediately cast a defensive spell. An electric snake shot out from Jen's fingertip and pierced through the cultist's head. Rubbing his chin, Jen smiled at Malone. Malone raised his head weakly and looked at Jen. Jen walked up and pinched Malone's chin. Ignoring his struggles, he stuffed the antidote into his mouth. Then, Jen turned and left. Malone thought that Jen was feeding him poison again, but he soon realized that his injured body was rapidly recovering. Was that the antidote? Malone's face was filled with shock. By now, he had enough power. Malone broke the magic ropes that bound his hands and feet. Malone chased out of the cave, but Jen had already disappeared. What was that guy's goal? Malone didn't understand. Malone felt his body's condition. He was recovering faster than he imagined. Marlon tapped his forehead with his finger. He had a very close contract with Terry Boyle. They could communicate from a distance. Lord Boyle, I'm free. I've brought West and the others to the Cursed Spirit's nest. We're coming in disguised as cultists. Lord Boyle, this is a trap for you. I know. How are you now? Are you in danger? I was saved by a cultist, but I'm not sure if he has any ill intentions. I don't understand his intentions. My poisoning was largely related to him, but he just killed 2 of his companions and gave me the antidote. I'm worried that they have a bigger plan, and that's not a good thing. I think you should leave this place now. Thuping Chinese said. Chapter 2027. Even if it's a trap, I'm not afraid, Terry Boyle said. Terry Boyle said, the grudge between me and the spirit of vengeance should come to an end. Moreover, he dared to attack you. Terry Boyle was furious. In his eyes, Marlin was his family. Now, his family was hurt. This was a vendetta that would not end until one of them died. Of course, even without this, Terry Boyle would still make the same choice. At this moment, the cultists noticed Terry Boyle and the others. This was understandable. After all, this was a deliberate trap for Terry Boyle. Therefore, the spirit of Cursed and the cultists had been waiting for Terry. A large number of cultists launched a suicide attack on Terry and the supernatural organization. Go ahead and fight, Terry Boyle said. Marlin is free now, so my power is starting to recover. With Terry Boyle's words, everyone felt more at ease. To be honest, they would rather have Terry fight. They wouldn't send a distress signal to Qinzhao. Especially West. Every time he talked to Qinzhao would ask if he needed help. Each time, West would proudly say no. West felt that if he asked Qinzhao for help this time, he would lose all his dignity. Boom, boom, boom. Qinzhao looked up and heard a familiar voice. It was hard not to notice Jallanash's exaggerated entrance. Jallanash plunged into the lair of the cursed spirits. She didn't care where her teammates were. She just wanted to kill to her heart's content. After all, her spell of mass destruction was a lethal weapon. Jallanash floated above the nest. A small sun descended from the sky and blasted the bottom of the nest. Rumble. After a huge explosion, the entire nest shook. Qinzhao was also affected by the huge shockwave. The flames engulfed him. However, this kind of impact was no threat to him. He was more concerned about Jallanash's safety. Jallanash was too impulsive. Moreover, this place was filled with all kinds of dangers. Qinzhao had circled around for a few hours. He knew very well how dangerous this place was. The attacks of the cultists were often unpredictable. And Jallanash indulged in unbridled destruction. This put her in danger unknowingly. At this time, another loud noise came from the entrance of the nest. Gaia also charged in. Jocelyn Nash, you're too impulsive, Gaia said reproachfully. Gaia, don't worry. These pieces of trash can't hurt me at all. Girls of Jallanash's age didn't like to be nagged by adults. He moved and flew to the front of a cave. Then, he released hundreds of small fireballs directly into the cave. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying flames and heatwaves rushed out of the cave. Just as Jallanash was about to fly away, a rope shot out from the flames and wrapped around her ankle. Oh no! Seeing Jallanash in danger, Gaia immediately went to save her. But at that moment, a few cultists held Gaia back, preventing her from saving Jallanash immediately. Jallanash was dragged into the cave. While being dragged, Jallanash released a wind blade at the rope around her ankle. But the rope was clearly enchanted, and Jallanash's wind blades had no effect on it. Delicious, delicious girl. A cultist licked his lips. He wore a bright red robe and behind him stood a body made of fire elements. This flame body was an elemental agitator, a type of fire element. It was because of this that Jallanash's bombardment had been ineffective. Flustered, Jallanash shot another spell at the cultist. But it was blocked by the agitator. Ropes shot out from the cultist's sleeves. The ropes danced under the cultist's control. A dozen ropes suddenly shot toward Jallanash. Oh no! Instinctively, Jallanash covered her face. But the next moment, she saw a hand appear behind her and grabbed the ropes. Jallanash turned around and was shocked to see Qinzhao standing behind her. Qinzhao pulled the ropes over and pulled the cultist before him. Then he smashed his head. Seeing that his summoner was killed, the agitator charged at Qinzhao in a frenzy. An electric snake shot out from Qinzhao's finger and pierced through the agitator. The agitator's body collapsed and exploded. President! President! Why are you here? Is this how you usually fight? Ignoring West's strategy? Charging around like this? Do you think you're invincible? You shouldn't have made them worry. Qin Zhao said coldly. President, I was wrong. You should apologize to them. Qin Zhao suddenly looked outside. Guy is here. Don't let them know I'm here. With that, Qin Zhao went into hiding. Zhao and Ash was speechless. They'd agreed not to attack. In the end, Chen Zhao still snuck over. Zhao and Ash, how are you? Are you okay? Gaia looked at the headless corpse on the ground and the scattered bloodstains around it. Clearly, the cultist's head had been smashed by a tremendous force. I'm fine. Gaia, let's go out. Zhao and Ash knew that she'd definitely be scolded and punished this time. However, if Qin Zhao was exposed, then Qin Zhao's revenge would be even more severe. Gaia looked around the cavern. Then, she took a deep breath and suddenly spat out dragon breath at the shadows in the cave. Rumble. Gaia, what are you doing? Nothing. I just feel like there's a bug hiding here. Gaia shrugged and turned to leave with Zhao and Ash. Don't act recklessly. You're not as strong as Qin Zhao. Got it. What could Zhao and Ash say? No matter how impatient she was, she didn't dare to retort near Qin Zhao. If she made Qin Zhao angry, he'd probably spank her without caring where they were. At this time, everyone had already killed their way into the lair of the cursed spirits. However, Qin Zhao still hadn't seen the spirit appear. This guy was really a coward. Someone was already at his door, but he still didn't show up. How cowardly was he? Qin Zhao sat quietly in one of the caves and watched as his people destroyed the place. To be honest, they were like the demolition workers. Their destructive power was superb. Just then, a figure appeared before Qin Zhao. Malone looked at Qin Zhao, who was sitting at the entrance of the cave with all sorts of snacks and beer on the ground. Chapter 2028. Can't you tell? Just watch. Qin Zhao tilted his head back and drank a mouthful of beer. Then he tossed the can down. Malone frowned at Qin Zhao. He was a little clear on whether Qin Zhao was a friend or foe. Qin Zhao's actions were too strange. He wasn't sure if he should attack Qin Zhao. Just then, a cultist charged at them. Qin Zhao lifted his finger and pointed. Another bolt of lightning shot out. The cultist's body was pierced. Malone realized that Qin Zhao was very strong. He wasn't as strong as when Malone had pressed him to the ground and beaten him up the first time. Malone estimated that according to Qin Zhao's current strength, Qin Zhao wouldn't be able to defeat him so easily. If they really fought back then, Malone didn't dare to say that he could beat Qin Zhao so easily, even though he believed that he wouldn't lose. From the start, Qin Zhao hadn't really attacked him. If Qin Zhao had attacked him and cooperated with the other cultists, Malone would have lost even worse. But those cultists clearly knew him. Of course, there was another possibility. Qin Zhao was a spiritualist who'd snuck into the cult with an ulterior motive. Or, it could be said that all of this was a conspiracy. A scheme that Malone couldn't understand. What exactly do you want? Malone asked. None of your business. If you don't want to tell me, I can only use violence, Malone said coldly. Qin Zhao burped. Are you going to use violence on a drunk person? I see that you're still very sober. Don't worry, I won't go too far. Malone suddenly charged at Qin Zhao. Bang! Malone suddenly felt that he'd lost control of his body. His body flew backward and embedded itself into the wall. Wah! Malone vomited large mouthfuls of blood. If it wasn't for Terry Boyle's strength, he would have died. Malone, I can feel that you're heavily injured again. What's wrong? Did you encounter a strong enemy? Terry Boyle asked anxiously. I'm fine. Malone spat out some blood and wiped the blood from his mouth. This time, Malone finally looked at Qin Zhao seriously. In the past, Malone had always looked down on Qin Zhao. Even though Qin Zhao's repeated actions were still suspicious, Qin Zhao didn't care. Malone had always treated it as a matter of course. But Qin Zhao's casual counterattack made him realize how terrifying Qin Zhao was. After all, Qin Zhao had used a physical attack to counterattack just now. And physical attacks happened to be Malone's forte. You've angered me, do you know that? Malone said in a low voice. Chen Zhao was still half paralyzed at the entrance of the cave, one foot crossed over the other. With one hand supporting his head, he still had that condescending attitude. If you don't like me, you can try to kill me. Don't regret it, Marlin reminded. I won't regret it, Chen Zhao said casually. You can't beat me. Take this. Ping. It was both the process and the result of the connection. The only difference was that Malone's injuries were more severe this time. Malone continued to vomit blood, as though he was about to vomit his lungs out. What did I say? You can't beat me. Terry Boyle sensed that Malone was heavily injured again, so he asked about Malone's situation again. Lord Boyle, please leave. There's a very powerful cultist here. I can't even take one blow from him. If he joins forces with the spirit of cursing, you'll be in danger. I won't leave you behind. Plus, the situation you're worried about doesn't exist. I'm the nature guardian. No one on this grassland can defeat me. Malone was worried about Terry Boyle's attitude. Terry Boyle's fearless attitude might put him in danger. Just then, the ground started shaking violently. Then, a huge object charged into the cave from outside. It was the nature guardian, Terry Boyle. However, he charged in his original form. The originally spacious cave couldn't fit him at all. However, Terry Boyle used brute force to smash open a path. Bangla, get out here, you coward! At this time, the temple that was originally standing in the middle began to emit cracking sounds. It was the sound of skulls hitting each other. The sound of 1,000,000 skulls hitting each other made one's scalp go numb. This was definitely not a good sign. Something seemed to be hiding in the temple. Chen Zhao sensed that there was something in the temple. An evil and ominous aura. But he soon realized that he was wrong. That thing wasn't in the temple. The temple was that thing. 1,000,000 skulls flew into the air. They were the spirit of cursing. Is this the spirit of cursing's original form? No wonder he couldn't find the spirit of cursing. It had been right under his nose all along. Millions of skulls flew into the air at the same time. It was a shocking scene. Terry Boyle, our final battle is finally here. Today, I will definitely win. The spirit of cursing's voice sounded like hundreds of thousands of people speaking at the same time. It was accompanied by the sound of countless bones hitting each other. Bangla, come. This is what I've been waiting for. Terry responded to the spirit of cursing's challenge. In an instant, the millions of skulls released spells at the same time. Moreover, these 1,000,000 skulls were not releasing the same type of magic. Instead, they released various spells. It was like 1,000,000 spiritualists releasing spells at the same time. How shocking would that be? Fuck, this is what I've been waiting for. Gorgeous spells, Chen Zhao muttered to himself. It was too shocking and gorgeous. It was so gorgeous that it left one speechless and shocked. The spells released by the 1,000,000 skulls were all below the intermediate level. But when there was a qualitative change, there would be a quantitative change. Even Ma Long was shocked by this. He had once destroyed a clone of the spirit of cursing under Terry Boyle's lead. But back then, the clone had only been a few hundred skulls. At that time, Malone had thought that killing a clone of the spirit of cursing would greatly weaken the spirit of cursing. But now, it seemed that the destruction of the clone had almost no effect on the original body. This time, Ma Long truly understood the difference between the clone of the spirit of vengeance and the main body. It could not be understood with common sense. I'm starting to admire this guy. He's so powerful, Chen Zhao said in amazement. The spirit of cursing's magic was a clone, but it gathered into a torrent of elements and magic. Terry Boyle spat out a mouthful of dragon breath. Turn everything into nothing. Chapter 2029. Terry Boyd's dragon breath couldn't completely dispel the directional spells. Also, some spells were not directional spells. Furthermore, the number of spells that the spirit of cursed had was simply too many, so many that it was outrageous. Terry Boyle was instantly hit by tens of thousands of spells. At the same time, His almost indestructible dragon scales and magic resistance also instantly lost their effect. In an instant, Terry Boyle was covered in cuts and bruises. However, Terry Boyle's wounds were healing at an astonishing speed. Terry Boyle's aura was rich and full of affinity with nature. Bangla, don't you understand? If you can't kill me instantly, you won't be able to defeat me. You've tried countless times in the past hundreds of years, Terry Boyle said confidently. The more power you absorb from nature, the more damage you will cause to nature. The spirit of cursing said, This is my ultimate goal. In recent years, I have understood that the possibility of destroying the world and mankind alone is too low. However, I have also learned a lot from humans. I know what the food chain is, what the biological chain is, and what the balance mechanism is. I don't need to destroy the whole world directly. I just need to destroy and pollute. If the balance mechanism collapses, then mankind and the world will eventually come to an end. What you're doing is superfluous. Humans have been unwavering on the path of self-destruction. As a bystander, Qin Zhao didn't like how the two non-human creatures judged humans. But he couldn't refute it. Just as Terry Boyle had said, humans were indeed courting death. However, Qin Zhao felt that the spirit of cursing was scheming against Terry Boyle. This shouldn't be all he had. The battle between the two of them would probably continue for a while. Qin Zhao wasn't in a hurry to intervene. Seeing that Qin Zhao seemed to be moving, Marlin immediately tensed up. He looked at Qin Zhao warily to see what he was going to do. If Qin Zhao wanted to interfere with the battle between the spirit of cursing and Terry Boyle, Marlin felt that he had to stop him. However, Qin Zhao clearly wasn't going to interfere with this inhuman battle. Qin Zhao circled to another cave. Naturally, Malone followed closely behind. But when he followed them in, he realized that Qin Zhao wasn't plotting anything. Malone saw a corpse on the ground. Based on his attire and posture, it was easy to tell that he was a cultist. On the other hand, Qin Zhao was tidying up the items left behind by the cultist. Malone was now absolutely certain that this fellow was not a cult member. He was far more dangerous than the cultists. Robbing and killing cultists? Only this guy would do such a thing. At this time, a female cultist appeared outside the door. The female cultist looked at the corpses on the ground and then at the two people in the cave. Her face twisted and she roared. Who are you? What did you do to my husband? Obviously. Qin Zhao looked back at the female cultist. I'll kill you. The female cultist screamed, and Marlin immediately covered his ears in pain. His mouth, nose, and ears were all bleeding. Qin Zhao was surprised. This female cultist's ability was very similar to Maev's. Of course, it was also because of this that he knew how to deal with this female cultist. Qin Zhao instantly appeared before the female cultist. He pinched her mouth and the surroundings quietened down. The female cultist looked at Qin Zhao in terror. She whimpered as if she was begging for mercy. Malone couldn't bear to see this, but it was too late for him to stop it. The female cultist's body slumped onto the ground powerlessly. Qin Zhao clapped his hands. You're too cruel, you evil person. Qin Zhao glanced at Marlin. I saved you. Is this how you treat your benefactor? I was ambushed because of you too. Me? I didn't attack you at all. You were ambushed at the right time. Even if I wasn't there, you would still be ambushed. If it wasn't for you, how could I have been ambushed? What a joke. You clearly had the ability to avoid that ambush, but you naively thought that you could escape unscathed. It's your arrogance that put you in danger. Are you blaming me for that too? Marlin was speechless. If one really wanted to get to the bottom of it, it was indeed not Qin Zhao's fault. You're far from being invincible. Qin Zhao sneered and turned to leave the cave. Marlin stared at Qin Zhao's back. Who exactly are you? Qin Zhao ignored Marlin's question and continued walking. Marlin followed closely behind. He still didn't trust Qin Zhao. Marlin realized that Qin Zhao never needed a second attack to kill the cultists. The cultists were still arrogant a moment ago, but in the next moment, Qin Zhao would smash their heads or snap their necks. Compared to Qin Zhao, the cultists were more like cute kindergarten kids. Qin Zhao saw that there was a huge hole right below the battlefield. The battle above was already in full swing, but Qin Zhao seemed to be uninvolved. Qin Zhao glanced at the hole. There seemed to be something down there. It was an evil existence even stronger than the cursed spirit above. Strange. What's down there? Judging from the aura, the two seemed to be very similar. Qin Zhao thought for a moment and jumped into the hole. Seeing Qin Zhao jump into the hole, Marlin also jumped in. The cave was very deep. It was at least 1,000 meters deep. Qin Zhao and Marlin landed one after the other. Marlin had been leaning against the wall to slow down the fall. Otherwise, even he would die if he fell from such a height. But he saw that Qin Zhao's feet were on the ground. There was no resistance at all. The ground cracked from Qin Zhao's fall. Marlin couldn't imagine how hard Qin Zhao's legs were. Even if Qin Zhao's legs were made of iron, they would probably be smashed into scrap metal after jumping from such a height. Marlin saw that it was a hemispherical room. The ceiling was circular, and the ground was very flat. The room was covered in all sorts of strange patterns. In the corner of the room, there was a stone chair. A gray-skinned demon sat on it. The demon held a black sword in his hand. He was lying on the stone chair in the posture of Gyu. Seeing Qin Zhao and Marlin enter the room, the demon propped himself up with the sword. Let me guess. Are you guys lost? Or are you here to kill demons? The demon tilted his head and looked at Qin Zhao and Marlin. Qin Zhao shrugged. To satisfy my curiosity. Your aura is very similar to that thing up there. I think you created that cursed spirit. Cursed spirit? You mean Bangla? The demon looked at Qin Zhao. Do you want to replace him? I can give you the same power, but you have to do one thing. Chapter 2030. What is it? Qin Zhao asked. Malone frowned. A demon? He couldn't help but be alarmed. Such an evil existence was very good at bewitching people. Qin Zhao was so lustful. It was too easy for him to be bewitched. You two kill each other, the demon said, looking at Qin Zhao and Malone. I'll give you the power you want if you can kill the other. Qin Zhao glanced at Malone. Instantly, alarm bells went off in Malone's mind. You can't paint a big picture for me. You only said that you would give me the power I want, but you didn't ask me how much power I want. You should at least show me your power. It would be best if it could shock me. Don't you think so? The demon grinned. You're right. Then show me how strong you are. The demon opened his arms. Qin Zhao could feel his power being released. Then the space around them started twisting. Malone's vision blurred. He saw that his surroundings had turned into a different environment. He was surrounded by a valley filled with blooming flowers, and the surroundings of the valley were shrouded in fog. Malone sucked in a breath of cold air. What was going on? Weren't they under the hole just a moment ago? Why did they suddenly come here? Only Qin Zhao's face was full of disdain. Sir, don't fool me with spatial magic. Qin Zhao was very displeased. It seemed that they'd moved from the underground hole to a strange valley. In reality, they hadn't moved at all. It was the space that moved. They'd entered an alternate dimension. This should be a permanent alternate dimension, like the one Qin Zhao had created in Minghui Villa. There was nothing special about it. Malone looked at Qin Zhao in confusion. He clearly didn't understand spatial magic. That was why he was surprised by Qin Zhao's calmness. To him, this was already a very powerful spell. But in Qin Zhao's eyes, it was too ordinary. Spatial magic required a lot of magic power, but it was very easy to cast. Those who knew it would find it easy, but those who didn't would find it unimaginable. The demon looked at Qin Zhao. Human, this is enough. You won't be able to accept too much power even if it's in front of you. Why don't you put your power in front of me and see if I can accept it? As long as you complete my request, you can have as much power as you want. At this moment, Malone spoke up. What if we reject your request? Qin Zhao pursed his lips. Marlin was afraid that Qin Zhao would really attack him. That was why he was the first to answer the devil's question. Then you'll both die here. The demon glared at Qin Zhao and Marlin. We should work together instead of being manipulated by this demon. Malone whispered to Qin Zhao. But his conditions are really attractive. Qin Zhao blinked and grinned at Marlin. Marlin's expression changed slightly, and he said solemnly, He is a demon. You should know of many who have been bewitched by a demon and fallen into a state of eternal damnation. Submitting to him will not do you any good. Qin Zhao looked troubled, as if he'd really been bewitched by the demon. Conflicted, he said, That's true, but the power is right in front of me. It's hard to reject. That's right, the demon said. In this world, only power is irresistible. If you have power, you'll have everything. He felt that Qin Zhao should be attracted by his conditions. Qin Zhao said helplessly, I really want your power, but I can't beat him. How about you help me kill him and then pretend that I killed him? Marlin was speechless. He felt like Qin Zhao was playing with the demon. The demon's face darkened even more. Human, I, Askamor, will not tolerate your provocation. I'll give you one last chance. Kill the people around you, or else you'll die here immediately. Let's go together. Marlin roared and charged at the demon called Askamor. In his opinion, the demon probably wanted them to kill each other because he couldn't deal with both of them at the same time. Askamor glanced at Marlin casually. He raised the black crystal-like sword in his hand and casually swung it down. Hiss! There was a tearing sound in the air. Marlin instantly felt great danger. Suddenly, Marlin felt a strong force tug at his back and he flew backward. Qin Zhao grabbed Marlin's collar. Don't be too rash. You'll die. Marlin's face paled. I won't lose so easily. Don't underestimate me. Qin Zhao pointed at where Marlin had been standing. There was a huge ditch in the ground. The ditch extended all the way back. Not far away, a hill that was dozens of meters tall had been cut off. Marlin's expression changed drastically. Was this a random attack from the demon? What kind of power was this? Even Terry Boyle probably didn't have this kind of power. Askamor looked at the two arrogantly. You have one last chance. One or two die. Marlin's chest heaved. He looked at Qin Zhao nervously. Would Qin Zhao yield to Askamor's threat? Askamor's cold gaze seemed to be able to penetrate Qin Zhao and Marlin's hearts. His aura grew stronger and stronger. It was as if the entire world was pressing down on them. Which demon king are you subordinate to? Qin Zhao asked curiously. I'm subordinate to the King of Power, Askamor said proudly. He was very satisfied and proud of his bloodline. Subordinate to the King of Power? A smile slowly appeared on Qin Zhao's face. I don't want your power. I just want a drop of your demon blood. Is that okay? No. Askamor snorted. My noble bloodline isn't allowed for a lowly creature like you to have it, even if you worship it. But I want it. Can't we bend the rules a little? Qin Zhao looked at Askamor helplessly. I said it's not allowed? Do I have to give it to you just because you want it? You're just a lowly ant without enough power. How can you have my blood? Not even a drop. Askamor looked at Qin Zhao in disdain. If you want it, take it yourself, as long as you have the ability. If you give it to me voluntarily, I'll just take one drop. But if I take it myself, it won't be one drop. Qin Zhao started to move his joints. Marlin looked at Qin Zhao in shock. Was he going to fight Askamor? Chapter 2031. That was the power that Askamor had displayed. Even if they were 10 times stronger, they still wouldn't be his match. He was an undefeatable enemy. Hearing Qin Zhao's words, Askamor laughed instead of getting angry. Very good, human. You're the first person to be so arrogant before me. I'll give you a chance to challenge me. Challenge is too shameless. You're so strong and have an invincible weapon. You know that this challenge is meaningless to me. Where's your pride as a demon? Is this your pride? Askamor laughed. Since you say that, I'll lend you the sword, As long as you can pick it up. Askamor released the hilt very arrogantly, and the blade stabbed into the ground. The moment the blade stabbed into the ground, a pattern appeared on the surrounding ground. Malone recognized the pattern. It was a power emblem, a magic array that the spellcaster's own power was used to suppress it. Without power that surpassed the spellcaster, one wouldn't be able to break the power emblem or lift the sword. This kind of spell had appeared many times in history. The most famous example was King Arthur and the sword in the stone. Apart from King Arthur, no one could pull out the sword in the stone. Of course, that was a spell specially made for King Arthur. It was like a backdoor for a computer program. Please, as long as you can lift the sword, I don't mind giving it to you. Askamor took 2 steps back generously. Askamor's eyes shone with evil light. Better be careful, Malone said. I'll try first. Sure. Chen Zhao nodded. Malone grabbed the hilt and pulled with all his might. But the blade didn't move at all. Then, Malone felt his power being absorbed by the sword. Damn! It's a wrestling emblem! Malone lay on the ground softly. Don't touch the sword! Why? This guy used a wrestling emblem. If you can't pull it out with your power will be absorbed by the sword and become a stronger emblem. It's already absorbed all my power. I see. Qin Zhao walked slowly to the black sword as if he hadn't heard Malone's warning. You idiot! Malone yelled. But Qin Zhao still reached for the hilt. Clang! Malone's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. He stared at Qin Zhao in shock. Qin Zhao pulled out the black sword. And he didn't seem to be struggling at all. It was pulled out just like that. Askamor was also in disbelief. How was this possible? However, Qin Zhao took advantage of Askamor's shock to suddenly appear before him. He raised his black sword and slashed at Askamor. Askamor couldn't dodge in time, and his left arm and shoulder were chopped off. Damn it, you despicable human! Askamor fled in a sorry state. But Qin Zhao chased closely behind. Malone's face was filled with disbelief. Askamor suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned his head around. By then, Qin Zhao had already raised his sword and slashed at Askamor's head. But at that moment, the tip of the sword stopped. A powerful force was fighting against Qin Zhao's own power. Human, this is a part of my power, Askamor said proudly. Do you think you can kill me with my power? Qin Zhao looked at Askamor's severed arm. I think you can. That was only a sneak attack, Askamor said stubbornly. If you do it again, your trick will be useless. Of course, he'd indeed panicked just now. If not for that moment of distraction, Qin Zhao's black sword wouldn't have been able to hurt Askamor at all. Askamor's severed arm recovered in the blink of an eye and grew back. Come back! Askamor yelled. Qin Zhao felt the black sword struggle wildly in his hand, as if it was about to break free from his grasp. Come back! Askamor raised his voice. The black sword struggled even more fiercely. Come back! Qin Zhao gripped the black sword tightly. Malone looked at Qin Zhao nervously. Hang in there. You can't let the black sword return to him. Of course, Qin Zhao wouldn't let go. But the black sword's struggle became more and more intense, and its resistance grew stronger. Qin Zhao suddenly grabbed the black sword's blade. Malone and Askamor both widened their eyes at Qin Zhao's crazy action. Crack! The black sword was broken in half in Qin Zhao's hand. Qin Zhao grinned. Since I can't have it, I'll just destroy it. Askamor's heart was alarmed. You despicable guy! You clearly have great power, but you lied to me. Don't you have any dignity or honor as a strong person? Killing you will be my greatest honor. Qin Zhao smiled at Askamor. The broken sword was still in Qin Zhao's hand, and he was increasing his strength. He was crushing the sword. Malone's face was filled with shock. How much strength did he need to crush a demonic sword? It was almost impossible, right? Even Askamor was frightened by this scene. He was the subordinate of the King of Power. But he'd actually been scared by a human's strength. Qin Zhao casually tossed the remaining part of the black sword aside. Ascamore's breathing quickened. Do you think you've already won? Yes, I do, Chen Zhao answered honestly. I can't find a reason why I didn't win. I'm the subordinate of the King of Power. Using swords isn't my specialty. Ascamore's body started growing bigger and bigger. His muscles, his posture, his body, they were all growing larger. Chen Zhao looked at the transforming Ascamore. Your transformation is too slow. If you're attacked now, will the transformation be interrupted? Chen Zhao looked at Ascamore with a smile. Malone looked at Chen Zhao. This guy was really shameless. But Malone had to admit that Chen Zhao's words had tempted him. But Malone couldn't do anything now. All his strength had been absorbed by the wrestling emblem. He could only lie on the ground and watch the show. There was nothing else he could do. But Chen Zhao had no intention of doing anything. He just stood before Ascamore and let him transform. Finally, Ascamore's transformation was complete. He was like a muscular monster, exuding an insufferably terrifying power from head to toe. Human, you didn't stop my transformation. This will be the biggest mistake of your life. Ascamore's body had grown from 2 meters to 6 meters, and his arms were as thick as siege hammers. Chen Zhao looked up at Ascamore silently. Unfortunately, I'm also good at strength. Chapter 2032. Ascamore's huge arm was already swinging toward Chen Zhao. Malone's pupils constricted. He saw an unbelievable scene. Ascamore's arm was twisting in an unbelievable way. The twisting wasn't of Ascamore's will. Chen Zhao had forcefully twisted it. Ascamore's huge body was kicked away by Chen Zhao. At the same time, his arm was left behind. Chen Zhao grabbed Ascamore's right arm and squeezed out the demon's blood like a rag. I said that if I do it myself, it won't be as simple as a drop of blood. I'm going to kill you! Ascamore roared furiously. At this moment, his strength increased once again. Chen Zhao realized that Ascamore's strength had multiplied again. At the same time, his speed had multiplied as well. Bang! Chen Zhao didn't notice and was hit by Ascamore's punch. Malone's heart skipped a beat as he watched. With Ascamore's terrifying physique, one punch from him would probably turn him into a bloody mess. Chen Zhao fell a few meters away and stood up again. Your strength is special. Ascamore grinned at Chen Zhao. I have a high-level bloodline. I'm the descendant of the King of Power for the first 10 generations. The more serious my injuries are, the more my strength will increase. Azicamus smashed the ground with one arm, and the ground was filled with dust. The area within a radius of tens of meters was cracked by him. Malone's scalp went numb. Could a human really defeat this demon? The more serious his injuries, the more his strength would increase. Chen Zhao patted the dust off his body. Then you should have more serious injuries. Chen Zhao looked at Ascamore calmly. Ascamore charged at Chen Zhao again, like a train charging at him. Chen Zhao stepped forward and punched from dozens of meters away. Ascamore's body was sent flying again. In the end, he smashed into the mountain wall behind him. Half of the wall collapsed and rubble fell down. Malone felt like he was suffocating. Chen Zhao and Ascamore's battle had opened up a whole new world for him. Both Chen Zhao and Ascamore were so powerful that they were suffocating. Ascamore pushed away the boulder on his body and vomited a few mouthfuls of blood. Human, you still haven't learned your lesson. I've said it before, the more you injure me, the stronger I will become. Giant's hammer! Ascamore smashed into the ground, creating a shockwave that surged toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao dodged Ascamore's attack. However, Ascamore seemed to have seen through Chen Zhao's movements. He was already waiting for him at the place where Chen Zhao dodged. Chen Zhao was hit head-on by Ascamore's punch. His feet slid back more than 10 meters. He exerted strength in his legs again and suddenly appeared before Ascamore, punching again. Ascamore slid back a dozen meters as well. Both sides were fighting in an extremely simple manner. It was like a pair of boxers in the ring, beating each other up. You punch, I punch. And Ascamore was just as he said. As Qin Zhao attacked and his injuries worsened, his power grew stronger and stronger. The entire space was shaking, and the earth was cracking. This was an alternate space, so it was obviously not as stable as a normal space. As the two forces grew stronger, the entire alternate space was on the verge of collapse. Askamor was indeed getting stronger and stronger. But his limbs were also cracking. His mouth, nose, and ears were all bleeding. Askamor vomited another mouthful of blood. The already turbulent alternate space collapsed directly. They returned to the hemispherical room. But their battle was getting more and more intense. However, what surprised Qin Zhao was that in this room, all the impact they created would be absorbed by the surrounding runes. Suddenly, Qin Zhao understood. This was a seal. A seal that trapped Askamor. Askamor was also at his limit now. Stop! Human! Stop, I admit defeat. Askamor had to stop. His power had reached its peak, which was relative to his body's limit. His injuries were also at their limit. But Qin Zhao seemed to have no limit at all. No matter how much his power increased, Qin Zhao could always increase it by the same amount. What terrified him even more was, his attacks had no effect on Qin Zhao at all. But every time Qin Zhao attacked, his injuries would worsen. Askamor's body was already a bloody mess. Qin Zhao was only panting slightly. His chest didn't rise and fall much. Marin was even more shocked. This was a battle that was hard to deal with. Both sides were displaying extreme power. However, Qin Zhao was clearly better. Qin Zhao's power was overwhelming. Qin Zhao stood calmly before Askamor. I said that when I come to take it personally, it won't be a drop of demon blood. I'm greedy. I want all of you, everything you have. I've been sealed here for thousands of years. I'm pitiful enough. Are you going to kick me when I'm down? You've been sealed for thousands of years? But it looks like you didn't stay here obediently at all. You're still causing trouble. Human, I still have a trump card. I have a dying strike. That's an attack that no human can withstand. Qin Zhao was still so calm. You'll definitely die today, whether you use it or not. Askamor gritted his teeth and looked at Qin Zhao. Why do you have to force me? I'm not forcing you. This is your own choice. Also, I really want to see how powerful your dying strike is. Marin looked at Qin Zhao. Hadn't he used his full power? He was so powerful. Was he really not at his limit? Askamor was still conflicted. If he used that move, death would befall him. But if he didn't use it, Qin Zhao would still bring him death. Fine. Let's die together. Askamor suddenly calmed down. It seemed that he'd made a decision. I hope you can do it. Qin Zhao turned to Marin. If you don't want to die, hide behind me. Marin stood up with difficulty, but his legs were trembling. I can't walk. Then wait for your death. In any case, I only had my power absorbed because I was fighting against him. But it's useless. Even if you didn't pull the sword out, I could still pull it out, so you're useless. Hearing Qin Zhao's words, Marin felt very stifled, but it made sense. Chapter 2033. Askamor took a deep breath, and the runes around him began to detach from the wall and surround his body. Qin Zhao realized that Askamor's life force was rapidly disappearing. Qin Zhao didn't know how this spell worked, but he understood. But Qin Zhao understood. Askamor was injecting his life force into the runes. These runes trapped Askamor, but Askamor could control these runes. But this control was one time, because he was using his life force to control them. After Askamor used it once, the runes would lose their effect. Askamor would die too. It could be said that the person who sealed Askamor here was quite vicious. He'd given Askamor a choice. He could choose freedom, but he would also have to face death. Or he could stay here obediently, but he had no freedom at all. The person who'd sealed him was clearly very familiar with Askamor. All the runes lit up. It was different from the slow speed when Askamor transformed. When Askamor used his trump card, it was very fast. It was done in a matter of seconds. The next moment, the runes started imprinting on Ascamore's body. The originally dark skin of Ascamore had turned into a golden glow. Chen Zhao immediately cast dark assimilation on himself. Chen Zhao's body turned black. Chen Zhao could feel that Ascamore's life force was almost depleted. How long can you last in this state? 10 seconds. Ascamore didn't hesitate, because he only had 10 seconds. Kill! Instantly, Ascamore shot toward Chen Zhao. In terms of speed, Ascamore was faster than Chen Zhao in this state. Chen Zhao's body was smashed into the curved ceiling above his head. Chen Zhao felt an unprecedented impact. Ascamore was also stronger than Chen Zhao in the dark assimilation state. Ascamore was already prepared to die. Thus, he wasn't as proud and arrogant as before. He calmly released his final madness. Let's go to hell together, Ascamore said calmly. Ascamore blasted out thousands of shadows of his fists. This move was the same as Chen Zhao's. It seemed that once one's strength reached a certain level, this move would be self-taught. Malone broke out in cold sweat. Previously, all he saw was Chen Zhao suppressing Ascamore. But now, it was Ascamore who was suppressing Chen Zhao. Even Chen Zhao couldn't last more than 10 seconds under that kind of bombardment, right? The rock layer above the ceiling began to shatter. Rocks continued to fall. Ascamore had already smashed Chen Zhao into the rock stratum and was still attacking him. Chen Zhao could feel it too. Dark assimilation alone was clearly not enough to fight Ascamore. Chen Zhao was also sick of Ascamore's ultimate move. At this moment, Malone, who was directly below, could do nothing but dodge the falling rocks with great difficulty. He had only recovered a little of his strength, which allowed him to move. Although Ascamore's bombardment lasted for a long time, it had only lasted for less than 5 seconds. Just then, Malone felt the air turn sluggish. Ma Long raised his head and looked at the sky. Above the falling rocks, there was a golden glow. Then, Malone saw Ascamore being stepped on by a golden giant. Bang! The flat ground was completely covered in cracks. Ascamore lay on the ground, unable to get up from Chen Zhao's foot. Looks like your wish didn't come true. I can't go to hell with you. Chen Zhao was in his full state now. The overwhelming power made Ascamore feel a deep sense of despair. Chen Zhao in his normal state and Chen Zhao in his full state were two completely different things. Ascamore's limbs were spread open, and he lay on the ground with his back spread out. He didn't have any more power to continue fighting Chen Zhao. After 10 seconds, his state started to decline greatly. I lost. Ascamore was unprecedentedly calm. In that case, I'll send you to see your boss. Actually, if a demon died, their soul would still return to hell. But after losing their bodies, only their souls were left. They were more miserable than humans. After all, for most demons, there was nothing better than a demon's soul without the protection of a physical body. Many demons were able to draw power from the souls of others. If it was a normal human soul, it could only absorb very little power. But if it was a demon's soul, then it could absorb a lot of power. Moreover, Ascamore was a mid-level demon, which was quite rare. Chen Zhao wouldn't feel like he was a friend to Ascamore. Chen Zhao was very clear about enemies and friends. An enemy was an enemy. Appreciating each other was just nonsense. Chen Zhao plucked off Ascamore's head. Malone looked at Chen Zhao's huge body in shock. He could also enlarge himself. For an excellent strength-type spiritualist, enlarging himself was normal. But Chen Zhao's enlargement seemed to have caused his power to change drastically. Just then, the rocks above fell even faster. The battle between Chen Zhao and Ascamore had already destroyed the geological structure above. The place was about to collapse. Grabbing Malone, Chen Zhao suddenly flew up. Even with Malone's body, he couldn't withstand the pressure from such high speed. Chen Zhao carried Malone and jumped between Terry Boyle and the Spirit of Cursing. Terry didn't know Chen Zhao. Seeing Chen Zhao grab the weak Malone, he immediately charged at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao sent Terry Boyle flying with a slap. The spirit of cursing didn't know Qin Zhao when he suddenly appeared. But Qin Zhao clearly wasn't on Terry's side. Plus, Qin Zhao was very powerful. So, the spirit of cursing was very excited. How could he have imagined that when he and Terry Boyle were locked in a fierce battle, such a powerful person would suddenly appear? Qin Zhao didn't have anything to say to the spirit of cursing. His goal this time was the spirit of cursing. Sir, Qin Zhao looked at the spirit of cursing. Can I ask you to die? What? The spirit of cursing couldn't react. But Qin Zhao didn't plan on reasoning with the spirit of cursing. He used his avatar and released 7,000 stone swords at the same time. The stone swords rushed toward the spirit of cursing like a flood. Chapter 2034. The spirit of cursing was dumbfounded by Qin Zhao's group attack. However, he quickly reacted. Qin Zhao's thousands of flying swords had destroyed tens of thousands of its skulls, but they hadn't really hurt its core. At least, the spirit of cursing felt that it could still fight. Of course, now wasn't the time to fight Qin Zhao. After all, Qin Zhao still had Terry Boyle, who was on par with it. The spirit of cursing immediately broke into pieces. Nearly 1,000,000 skulls flew out of the lair. However, one of Qin Zhao's clones was blocking the entrance of the lair, not giving the spirit of cursing a chance to escape at all. Seeing one of the skulls flying over, the clone fired a holy light cannon at it. All the skulls within 100 meters would be vaporized. West and the others were completely speechless. When they saw Qin Zhao appear, they'd completely given up on fighting. There was no point in fighting anymore. Even the mentality of the association members had changed. Even he himself felt the same way. Everyone thought that there was no point in fighting anymore. Qin Zhao was like a stabilizing force. Seeing that the entrance was blocked, the spirit of cursing panicked. Even a clone wasn't something it could break through. In fact, even a clone of Qin Zhao's was close in strength to the main body. Who are you? Why are you interfering with my feud with Terry Boyle? The spirit of cursing roared furiously. It's none of your business. The spirit of cursing was furious. You're going to kill me, and you're saying it's none of my business? In fact, Qin Zhao had 100 or even 1,000 reasons to kill it. Did Qin Zhao need a reason to kill an unnatural creature that wanted to destroy the world and all humans? No. Qin Zhao didn't even bother to explain. Whether it was for business or personal reasons, Qin Zhao had a reason to kill it. By then, Qin Zhao's main body had already stopped fighting. He came to West and the others. He casually threw Marlin on the ground. Guild leader, why are you here? Qin Zhao took out Askamore's head. If I didn't come, you would have died here. I heard that there's a demon even scarier than the spirit of cursed in the depths of this nest. The spirit of cursed true goal is to release that demon. The magic that you release in battle will become the power to unlock the seal. Askamore had already been killed by Qin Zhao anyway. No one would explain anything. The members of the supernatural organization looked at each other in shock. Didn't you ask around before carrying out such an important operation? Qin Zhao refused to admit that he'd interfered with West's plan. Instead, he pushed the blame to West and the others. Gaia narrowed his eyes at Qin Zhao. Qin, if there's really such danger here, you wouldn't have kept it a secret from us. With your personality, you'd probably have stopped us halfway. Gaia looked at Qin Zhao seriously. I'm afraid you came here and suddenly discovered that there's a demon hidden underground. You used this as an excuse to cover up the fact that you interfered with our operation. Gaia, we're close, but you can't slander me like this. Now, everyone looked at Qin Zhao suspiciously. One had to admit that Gaia's suspicions hit the nail on the head. I'm just being reasonable. Can I be suspicious? Your suspicions are baseless. Damn, that spirit of cursed is stronger than I thought. Looks like we can't talk anymore. I'll go finish him off first. The spirit of cursed was stronger than they'd imagined? Everyone looked at the spirit of cursed that had been beaten into pieces by Qin Zhao's clone. Did the spirit of cursed have any spectacular performances? It seemed like Chen Zhao was bullying the spirit of Cursed one-sidedly. Moreover, Chen Zhao's main body was still talking to them. This was stronger than they'd imagined. One had to admit that Chen Zhao's way of changing the topic was rather refreshing. What's going on? West, who's that? Terry Boyle rushed over at this time. That's our boss. Pointing at Chen Zhao, West said. As for the specifics, it's best to ask Marlin. We're not sure either. Terry Boyle looked at Marlin. Marlin thought for a while and said, It's like this. You're saying that there's a demon under this nest and the spirit of Cursed was created by this demon? And it was killed by that person? Yes, that man's temper isn't very good. Because West and the others were present, Marlin was very tactful with his words. What do you mean by temper? He's just a bad person, West said. And he's filled with all sorts of bad interests. Indecent. Cruel. Marlin was speechless. They were indeed saying what Marlin was thinking. However, he couldn't say that. After all, they were on Chen Zhao's side. Chen Zhao's abilities had been proven time and time again. Is that your president? He's indeed very strong. Terry Boyle had only been slapped once by Chen Zhao, but it was a heavy slap. Then, he looked at the spirit of Curse, who could only fight back and forth with him. Before Chen Zhao, he was as pitiful as a child. When Chen Zhao shattered the last skull, the spirit of Curse's true form was finally revealed. It was an enormous spiritual body. It wasn't weak, but that was only when compared to ordinary spiritual bodies. If it was any one of the people present, they would be able to deal with it easily. Right now, the spirit of Cursed was like a girl who'd been stripped naked. He was facing a pack of tigers and wolves. Chen Zhao put away his avatar and used dark lava to wrap around the spirit of Cursed's body. Then, he used a soul container to stuff the spirit of Cursed's body into it. President, is that why you're here? West asked, looking at Chen Zhao. I'm here to protect you guys. It's just a convenience. Just treat it as a reward. I'm leaving. Have fun on the African plains. With that, Chen Zhao prepared to leave. Mr. Chen, please wait. Terry Boyle called out. What? You want to get beaten up? Mr. Chen, don't tell me you've forgotten what we talked about last time. We had a good time. But the first time we met, you attacked me. You said it's our first time meeting. We don't even know each other. Chapter 2035. Chen Zhao didn't have any bad feelings toward Terry. In Chen Zhao's opinion, everything Terry Boyle had done was within his scope of responsibility. Mr. Chen, how about we talk? To be honest, Terry had heard too much about Chen Zhao from West and the members of the supernatural organization. Before they met, Terry Boyd had his own imagination. Of course, Terry didn't just want a simple chat. He wanted to talk to Chen Zhao alone. Chen Zhao thought about it and agreed to Terry Boyle's request. Mr. Chen, you're almost at the level of an unparalleled master now. Chen Zhao didn't feel much about Terry's compliment. Chen Zhao didn't have too many illusions about his own power now. The more powerful he was, the more insignificant he felt. Chen Zhao knew a few powerful and unreasonable existences. There were still many things in this world that Chen Zhao couldn't understand or recognize. Moreover, Terry was definitely up to no good since he was complimenting him like this. Mr. Chen, just say it. Mr. Chen, do you want to become stronger? Chen Zhao looked at Terry Boyle and sized him up seriously. Terry Boyle felt very uncomfortable under Chen Zhao's gaze. You! There was indeed some disdain in Chen Zhao's tone. Terry's tone was too similar to the demons and ancient gods Chen Zhao had met in the past. Do you desire power? Do you want to become stronger? Only villains would say such things. Hearing Chen Zhao's reply, Terry felt very stifled. He also felt that his tone was a bit strange. Mr. Chen, of course it's not me, but it's also related to me, Terry said. Mr. Chen, as the guardian of this grassland, I can borrow the power of the entire grassland. I'm almost undefeatable here. Oh. Chen Zhao thought for a moment, and decided not to expose Terry in front of him. Terry Boyle suddenly remembered the fact that he had been sent flying by Chen Zhao in a single exchange. Of course, I can't withstand the power of the entire grassland. I can probably withstand about 5 times the power of my main body, Terry Boyle said. But you're different, Mr. Chen. You have a strong body and amazing strength. You can withstand 10 or 20 times your normal strength. Oh, are you going to gift me the power of the Great Prairie? Of course, as long as Mr. Chen is willing to accept. What are the conditions? Become nature's guardian. Goodbye. Qin Zhao never had any extravagant hopes that he could obtain external power for no reason. No matter what, strength was good for him. And to become a nature guardian, one had to shoulder the responsibility of a nature guardian. Wait. Don't go. Let's talk. Mr. Chen, you still don't know the benefits of being a nature's guardian. What benefits? As long as you are a nature's guardian, even if you die, you will be revived. That's immortality? Qin Zhao looked at Terry Boyle in surprise. It's an exaggeration to call it immortality. This grassland needs a nature's guardian, so even if you're vaporized into atoms, your body will be reconstructed and your consciousness will be restored. This is already immortality, right? Qin Zhao exclaimed. Even Qin Zhao couldn't revive after being vaporized into atoms. Of course, the revival time is a bit long. How long? About 100 years. 100 years? I don't even know if I can live that long. Do you have some misunderstanding about human lifespans? I said that as long as you are a nature's guardian, you're immortal. Lifespan won't be an obstacle. Terry Boyle looked at Qin Zhao. Think about it. As a human, you're extremely powerful, even stronger than dragons, but your pitiful lifespan is probably only 200 years old. As a nature's guardian, your lifespan will stop being consumed. After you complete your duty, you'll have the right to take away all the power you can. 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. At that time, you'll be truly invincible. Everything in the world will tremble under your feet. Qin Zhao tilted his head and looked at Terry Boyle. Your tone is exactly the same as the demon I just killed. But I'm telling the truth. I'm not lying at all. You're telling the truth, but you're hiding important information, Qin Zhao said. You only told me the benefits of being a nature's guardian, but you didn't tell me what I have to pay or what my duty is. Of course, it's to protect this grassland. If there's trouble, you'll have to help. It's that simple. For you, even if the spirit beasts, the undead elementals, and Gu Yida's army cause trouble at the same time, you can easily suppress them. This duty shouldn't be too easy for you. What else? Qin Zhao smiled at Terry Boyle. Terry purposely said it casually, but he was still hiding important information. There are some small rules that aren't too important. What small rules? Terry pursed his lips. For example, during your duty, you can't leave the grassland. Indeed, there were so many benefits, but he also had to pay a huge price. When Qin Zhao heard this request, he immediately lost interest. Goodbye. Qin Zhao waved and turned to leave. Terry hurriedly pulled Qin Zhao back. Let's discuss more. There's no need. Why don't you recommend one to me? Terry Boyle said. Qin Zhao stopped and turned to look at Terry Boyle. That's what you thought from the beginning, right? You never thought I'd accept this duty. Of course you're my first choice, but I know the possibility isn't high, Terry said honestly. Terry Boyle said frankly, you must know many powerful beings, human or other creatures, as long as they are powerful enough and willing to accept this responsibility. Can you help me find one? What's in it? Qin Zhao asked. I can give you a blessing. A blessing that you won't be affected by poison at all. I have a special demon bloodline. My poison resistance isn't any weaker than yours. What do you want? Your blessing is good. My family needs it. No problem. I'm not sure when I can help you find one, but you have to bless my family first. Chapter 2036. To put it bluntly, Chen Zhao was just making empty promises. He had to get the benefits first. As for when he could do it, and if he could do it, Chen Zhao wouldn't give any promises. Terry looked at Chen Zhao helplessly. Your request is a bit too much. Fine, Chen Zhao said. Then let's forget about it. Chen Zhao wasn't in a hurry. He wouldn't lose anything anyway. Wait, I didn't say I wouldn't agree, Terry said, frustrated. How powerful does the nature guardian have to be? An adult dragon is the minimum requirement. Like you? I'm not a normal dragon. Since you're a dragon, can't you find one from your tribe? Please spare me. I know better than anyone else what kind of behavior most of the dragons in my own clan are. I'll let you know if there's news, Chen Zhao said. Oh, when will you deliver my family's blessings? Bring your family over, of course. I can't leave the plains. Fine, we'll talk when I'm free. Chen Zhao thought about it. He wasn't in a hurry. After discussing with Terry Boyle, Chen Zhao returned to the crowd. Wes, when do you plan on going back? We'll leave after taking the benefits, Wes said. Be more ruthless, Chen Zhao whispered. If he doesn't give enough, I'll ask for more for you later. There wasn't much for Chen Zhao to do here anyway. Chen Zhao left Africa directly. Chen Zhao stayed in Africa until 3 in the morning. It was only 7 or 8 in the evening in America. 7 or 8 hours wasn't a big difference. After returning home, Chen Zhao took a shower first. He smelled really bad. After all, those cultists didn't care about personal hygiene. Furthermore, they all liked to conduct research and experiments that made people nauseous. Chen Zhao suddenly remembered that the deathly poison man was still in the nest. He'd almost forgotten about him. But Chen Zhao couldn't be bothered with him. He could only wish him good luck. Chen Zhao called the witch he talked to last time. Miss Witch, can we talk? Mr. Chen, I don't think we have anything to talk about. Buddha's reply was very cold. I've already made my request. If you fulfill it, I'll help you navigate. I have a disaster-grade evil spirit soul, Chen Zhao said. It's a relatively complete soul. The Buddhist monk jumped up. What? Are you serious? Of course, Chen Zhao said. It's a cursed spirit from Africa. Are you telling the truth? Of course, if you don't believe me, you can check it yourself. Then let's arrange a place to meet. Sure, you decide the time and place. Right now, in Yellow Flower Creek Park. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes. It seemed that the witch was very eager. Sure. Chen Zhao hung up and went to Yellow Flower Creek Park. The Buddhists arrived at Yellow Flower Creek Park earlier than Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao saw many Buddhists from afar and walked up to her. I am Buddha, witch, Buddha said. You must be Mr. Chen. Chen Zhao took out the soul container. It looked like it was only a few 100 milliliters, but it contained an indescribably horrifying thing. Moreover, the ominous and unclean aura of the cursed spirit was still seeping out of the soul container. This is what you want. Chen Zhao tossed the soul container to the Buddhist monk. Not bad, but you still need demon gold, gray eye, and $10 million. After confirming, the Buddhist monk confirmed that there was a disaster-grade spirit inside. She didn't know if it was the cursed spirit. However, to her, it was fine as long as it was a disaster-grade spirit. As for its origin, she didn't care. I don't think I need to pay more, Chen Zhao said. The Buddhist monk looked at Chen Zhao. What do you mean? My meaning is clear. Either you take the soul container and we come to an agreement, or you cancel the deal and return the soul container to me. Chen Zhao smiled at her. The Buddhist monk clearly wasn't willing to hand over the soul container. It was too important to her. This was the reason why Chen Zhao had given the soul container to so many Buddhists. The way she thought about it was different when she got it, and when she didn't. The Buddhist monk knew how difficult it was to obtain a disaster-grade spirit. It might even be an impossible mission. If she could get a disaster-grade spirit, it would greatly reduce the difficulty of her and her sister's plan. The Buddhist monk's eyes flickered. She was considering if she should use violence to take the soul container. You can't beat me, Qin Zhao seemed to have seen through the Buddhist's thoughts. A glint flashed across the Buddhist monk's eyes. How do you know if you don't try? Of course I don't mind, Qin Zhao said indifferently. But you better think about the consequences. If you can't beat me, you won't get anything. I'll also use crueler methods to force you to work for me. The Buddhist monk tightened her grip on the soul container. If you dare to force me, I'll break the container. The Buddhist monk didn't know how Qin Zhao had gotten this disaster-grade spirit. But she felt that it definitely wasn't easy for Qin Zhao either. He definitely couldn't succeed alone. So, if she used the soul container to threaten the other, she might succeed. Give me back what's mine and I'll pretend this never happened, Qin Zhao said calmly. Impossible! I said that if you don't meet my requirements, don't think I'll be your navigator. In that case, the deal is over. I don't need you to be the navigator. I believe I can find a replacement. The Buddhist monk was furious that Qin Zhao went back on his words. In reality, Qin Zhao had never promised her anything. But this calamity-level spirit body was too important to her and her plan. She definitely wouldn't give up on it. But she didn't have many choices. It was very unlikely that she could successfully take the soul container away. First of all, she couldn't accept the man's ridiculous request. But if she fought with Qin Zhao, she didn't think she had any chance of winning either. Her battle talent was too weak. Now, she regretted not bringing her sister along. If Asindua was here, they might be able to obtain this disaster-grade spirit without paying any price. Chapter 2037. The Buddhist looked at Qin Zhao warily. Qin Zhao kept his hands in his pockets. They really weren't worth Qin Zhao's effort. No matter how you looked at it, they couldn't even meet Qin Zhao's standards as an enemy. Plus, she wasn't completely irreplaceable. If the Buddhist's request matched her price, Qin Zhao wouldn't mind working with her. But to Qin Zhao, the Buddhist's demands were too much. There weren't many requests in the world that couldn't stop Qin Zhao. The Buddhist's requests had already exceeded his expectations. Qin Zhao didn't think that her price was worth it. He felt that a disaster-level spirit was a suitable price. The Buddhist rolled her eyes and said, I can't decide this alone. I want to discuss it with my sister and then give you an answer. Leave the thing behind and we can discuss it however you want, Qin Zhao said calmly. The Buddhist clearly didn't want to leave the soul container behind. Qin Zhao shook his head. So troublesome. Qin Zhao walked toward the Buddhist. The Buddhist immediately yelled, Don't come over! If you do, I'll smash the soul container. The spirit of vengeance is in a weakened state. To me, you've only destroyed a soul container. I'll just replace it with another one. But you'll definitely die here. Since you've rejected the deal, it means nothing to me whether you die or not. The Buddhist expression grew even worse. She didn't know if Qin Zhao could really suppress the spirit of the curse by himself. But if she really smashed the soul container, she would definitely die. The spirit of the curse would kill her without Qin Zhao even having to do anything. Suddenly, Qin Zhao's figure flashed and he disappeared from the spot. Oh no! The Buddhist cursed inwardly. She didn't know what to think, but she just smashed the soul container onto the ground. Just then, Qin Zhao had already grabbed Buddha's wrist and snatched the soul container. With a backhand slap, he sent the Buddhist cultivator flying. Our deal is over. Goodbye. Qin Zhao didn't want to work with the Buddhist anymore. This was a woman who didn't know her limits and wanted a yard after being given an inch. This kind of woman was definitely not a good partner to work with. In comparison, Qin Zhao was more willing to work with someone like Guret. Although Guret was a pirate, he knew his limits. Qin Zhao and Guret had a great time working together. Both sides had gained quite a lot. Qin Zhao's initial capital accumulation was even shared with Guret's. The Buddhist stood up with great difficulty. Qin Zhao's blow was neither light nor heavy, but it hurt a lot. Although she was indignant, there was nothing she could do. When he got home, he saw Asindor in the living room. There are many Buddhists. What's wrong with you? Who did it? Isidore stood up immediately. There is a person who has a calamity-grade spirit body, the Buddhist said. Are you serious? Isidor's eyes were filled with surprise. I've confirmed it, Buddha Duo said. Why would he have it? I don't know. Originally, I wanted to get that calamity-grade spirit body and then leave this place, but that person is very cautious. Maybe he noticed my goal. Your injury was caused by him? That's right, he did it. Perfect, Isidore said with a gloomy face. He's very strong, the Buddhist said. So what? If we work together, no one can beat us, Isidore said. The Buddhist thought about it and realized that it was true. She wasn't good at fighting, but her other ability was invincible. Where does he live? Let's go find him now. I don't know, but someone knows, the Buddhist said. Who? That dark elf, Lila Gavich. I heard that the white elves have been looking for him. He's a coward now. Although he's hiding very well, I can still find him. In the past few days, Lila Gavich had been living like a primitive man. He'd used up all the resources he'd prepared. He even had to use leaves to relieve himself. In modern society, the elves were already used to the technological lifestyle. Just like humans, the elves were already used to it. But this wasn't the most painful thing for him. The most painful thing was that he didn't know when it started, but that uneasy feeling had gotten stronger and stronger. And today, that feeling of unease had finally reached its peak. Lila Gavich felt that something was definitely going to happen tonight. Was nature's test finally coming? But why was the uneasy feeling so strong? Did something happen to Qin Zhao? After thinking for a long time, Lila Gavich finally decided to call Qin Zhao. Hello, Qin. It's me, Lila Gavich. Huh? You changed your number again? Qin, I feel like something's going to happen tonight. It makes me very uneasy. You mean nature's test is about to begin? It should be tonight. But didn't you say it'll take about a month? It seems to be less than half a month now. I don't know. I think it's the White Elves doing. I don't know what's going on. That means you need my help tonight? Yes, Lila Gavich said solemnly. Got it. I'll go now. Give me your address. I don't have an address. I'm hiding in the forest now. I've been living like a primitive man for half a month. Okay, give me the exact location. After receiving Lila Gavich's address, Qin Zhao set off immediately. When he arrived, he realized that Lila Gavich didn't look too good. It wasn't because of his living environment, but his mental state. In Qin Zhao's impression, this fatty had always been the model of a big-hearted and fat person. Very few things could make him so uneasy. Gavich, your mental state is very bad. I can't sleep for many days, Lila Gavich said. Are you sure it'll start tonight? I'm sure that something will happen tonight. Chen, you'll help me, right? Lila Gavich's eyes were even pleading. I said that I'll fulfill my promise. I'll help you. No matter what trouble you encounter, as long as it's within my power, I won't just stand by. Thank you? Okay, let's cut the crap. When does it start? I'm not sure. The uneasy feeling is getting stronger. Chapter 2038. Qin Zhao didn't know how to comfort Lila. He just sat beside him. However, Lila couldn't calm down at all. He kept mumbling something. At that moment footsteps were heard outside the cave where Lila Gavich was staying. Qin Zhao turned his head to look at Lila. Someone came in. Do you know them? Lila looked at Qin Zhao in surprise. No, I didn't tell anyone apart from you. Huh? One of them looks familiar. Qin Zhao already realized that one of them was Buddha, whom he just taught a lesson to not long ago. The other was similar to Buddha, but also different. It felt like they were twins. When Buddha and Azindor appeared before Qin Zhao and Lila, Qin Zhao realized that they really were twins. Buddha! Azindor, why are you here? What are you doing here? Lila looked at Buddha in surprise. What are you doing here? Lila Gavich looked at the Buddhists in surprise. He and Azandor had come here to find Lila and ask about Chinzhao's whereabouts. She and Isandor had come here to ask Lila Gavich about Chinzhao's whereabouts. Azandor, it's him. Azandor looked at Chinzhao. Hand over the spirit of cursed soul container. Azador looked at Chinzhao. Hand over the cursed spirit's soul container. Chinzhao looked at Lila Gage. They're your friends? His parents and Azandor were here to cause trouble again. His parents and Azandor were here to cause trouble again. That's enough. Buddha Azandor, if you don't want to die, scram. Lila, what right do you have to order us? Who do you think you are to us? Azandor said arrogantly. Suddenly, Lila clutched his chest. An indescribable pain surged up his heart. He almost lost his balance. His body swayed and he staggered 2 steps. Gavich, are you okay? Chinzhao helped him up. I feel, it's coming. That uncomfortable feeling is really coming. Suddenly, a black liquid started appearing under Lila's feet. The black liquid started spreading in all directions. It also reached Chinzhao's feet, and then Buddha and Isandor's feet. Chinzhao lifted his foot. The black liquid seemed to be very sticky. Even Chinzhao felt a strong pull. Gage, what's going on? Chinzhao asked. Lila Gavich was equally confused. I don't know. What's going on? There are no records of such a situation in the ancient books of our race. Damn it, Lila Gavich, what the hell are you doing? Cinder, I can't move. Me too, Isandor said. The black liquid was very sticky. Apart from Chinzhao, no one else could move at all. However, even Chinzhao could feel how sticky it was. But at that moment, the black liquid began to take human form. Both Chinzhao and Lila Gavich realized that the figure formed by the black liquid was Mislan Prior. Meslin, did you do this? Lila Gavich roared furiously. He should have known that other than Mycelan Pulu, no one would scheme against him like this. But he didn't know what Mycelan had done. Tilting his head, Mycelan looked at Lila Gavich. A strange smile appeared on his completely black face. I want you to go to hell with me. Just then, Mycelan Pule stood up from the black liquid one after another. Even Chinzhao and Lila Gavich couldn't tell which one was the real one. All of Mycelan's black clones pounced at Lila Gavich, Chinzhao, Fromentin, and Cinder. Chinzhao attacked the black clones with all his might, but they were defenseless. Chinzhao shattered them with one attack, but the others weren't as lucky. Lila Gavich was surrounded by the most black clones. The black clones' attack method was simple. They pounced on Lila Gavich. Chen! Save me! Lila Gavich yelled. Chinzhao used all his strength and charged to Lila Gavich's side, grabbing him. But Lila Gavich was almost swallowed by the black clones. Ah! Just then, Lila Gavich let out a pained cry. Let go! Let go! My body is going to be pulled apart. Lila Gavich's cries were extremely miserable. Chinzhao's expression changed slightly. Lila Gavich was really in pain. The black clones seemed to want to sink him into the darkness. Chinzhao could only let go. If he didn't, Lila Gavich would really be pulled in half. Chinzhao wanted to protect Lila Gavich, not kill him. Just then, a huge pit several meters in diameter appeared in the ground. Black liquid flowed into the pit continuously. Chinzhao's expression changed. The pit released an intense hell aura. Did this pit lead to hell? Chinzhao's expression kept changing. He had promised Lila Gavich that he would protect him. Unexpectedly, Lila Gavich still couldn't escape his fate. Chinzhao took out his phone. Handsome, summon me to hell. Thanks. Soon, Chinzhao was summoned to hell. Chinzhao, why are you in such a hurry this time? What's up? I promised a friend to protect him, Chinzhao said. But he was pulled into hell. You mean forcefully pulling his body and soul into hell? Yes. That's impossible. But it happened right in front of me. Tell me the details. My friend is an elf. He was undergoing the test of an elf envoy. Suddenly, a large amount of black liquid appeared. Not only did the black liquid drag him into hell, but I was also attacked. 2 women were dragged into hell with me. The handsome guy immediately understood. He wasn't pulled into hell. He was sent there by the laws. What do you mean? I don't understand. His test is hell's test. Hell's test? Yes, he'll be punished by hell. Can you help me find him? I can help you find him, but I can't do anything. Even if I do, I'll only attack your friend. Why? Because I'm a part of hell. Not doing anything is the greatest help I can give you. The other demon kings won't do anything, right? Chen Zhao asked. How strong is your friend? Around the level of a low-level demon, maybe even weaker. Then the demon attacking him won't be stronger than a mid-level demon. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.